taking off in 5, 4, 3, deuce. Yo, 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 yo. It's your boy, T.O., as you very well know.
It's your boy, O-Rain, real name, no games, no gimmicks.
It's a motherfucking Fade Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything TV, media, and film related. Along with any other goddamn thing we'll talk about, coming to you live direct from Concept Studios. What the fuck is up? What up?
All is well, bro. All is well.
Booyah. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah, I was trying something new. Didn't work.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah. You know, you can't be afraid to try new things sometimes.
Don't be afraid to try new things. Stick to what you know, though.
Those are contrasting thoughts.
Yeah. Sometimes you go too far and you can't come back.
That's true, but you got to experiment, though. You got to know what's too far, and then you're going to be like, you know what? That was too far. I'll dial it back. But you can't regret doing it, though. You know, that's, I think, the mistake. You gotta make the mistake.
Which is paradox. You know, that's what Army Hammer would say. It was just a mistake. I didn't know I went that far.
No, repeated behavior is not a mistake. That's just what you do. That's
I made multiple mistakes.
Yo, whatever happened with that? Did he? I still don't understand that entire situation. I still don't understand exactly what transpired there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that happened. Several women came out and claimed that like he just did some like wild shit, like you know he's into some like really like hardcore,
but it
intense
seemed like
sexual stuff.
The awareness was there. And this is trying to remember back to, and we can slide out of this conversation anytime.
Yeah,
you know, no pun intended there, but I like from what I remember about it, it was
3 years ago now, right? The whole,
I think
or
so.
Was it 2 years
somewhere,
ago?
It might have been 2, but I feel like it was like because it was part of that consensual, non-consensual. Like I remember going back to that episode that we, or maybe it's even a clip that we have out there on YouTube, and I just remember us arguing back and forth about that idea of consensual non-consent.
Yeah, I think Army Hammer is just waiting for another celebrity to take the crown of weird shit.
No, it seems like they don't mind exiling him permanently. There's some people who can come back, right?
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr., who we're probably going to talk about here in a little bit.
He had like drug problems and alcohol problems.
It depends on what you do.
Because like certain things, right, you seem like you're a victim of it, right?
Yeah.
You people are more empathetic to you if you're dealing with something like, drug addiction, alcoholism, depression, like weight issues, blah blah blah. Yeah. Now, when you do some shit like what Army Hammer, even though like none of us actually know what happened, and like I don't think he was ever tried and convicted of any sex crimes or whatever. Yeah. I just think there are a lot of allegations out there from a lot of people who say he did a lot of like weird, very like hardcore oddball like sex shit. You know, not shaming anybody's thing, but apparently he crossed the line with a lot of women's boundaries, right? Yeah, it is kind of an interesting thing. He was never tried or convicted of anything. He was never arrested. He was never, never had his day in court.
Tried in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, but he's done.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I want. I never really was a fan of Army Hammer anyway.
I mean, was anybody really?
Yeah, so I'm not going to say that I want to see him work again, but like it is kind of fucked up. He's gone. I
mean, he comes from wealthy parents, I think. And from what I understand, he did a lot of fucked up shit to his wife. Again, trying to remember back to that story, but as a very wise young man once told me, it'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah, man.
What are you gonna do?
Non-disclosure agreements.
Well, I mean, it might even be more than that. I think he. I think whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. I don't feel like talking about Army Hammer this entire episode. What have you been up to, man? How's life? Oh, wait. What
did we miss?
I don't think I can. I don't think.
Yes. Congratulations are in order.
Oh, I don't know if we can. Is there a green light? What are we doing?
Nah, I think we can.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yo, I wish I had the button so I could hit the
bam, 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 bam,
I got it. It's already ready to go.
Hit it then, man.
Congratulations, Addy. Man. New dad. I think it starts now, right? You got to start preparing now.
Yeah, man. I mean, we've been preparing.
Yeah.
It's we've known for a little bit, so
What are you guys doing? You guys reading a book? You taking Lamaze classes?
Lamaze class.
Isn't that what it's called? Is it Lamaze?
You guys, you're the one with the kids.
Yeah, you tell us.
I didn't do that. I didn't do it. Bro, I bought this like baby book for like new dads.
Yeah.
How to prepare you to be a new dad. I never read that shit. I'm just like, I'll figure it out.
Woof.
Kid 7.
First couple years, rocky.
Most of it you just figure out. Like, they shit themselves. Like, okay, clean it up. Threw up, clean it up. Knock something. Most of it's just cleaning up.
Yeah, what happens when they start asking you existential questions?
Oh.
You know, what's the meaning of the universe, Daddy?
Fucking no. You figure it out. I'll pay for college. You figure it out.
Yikes. Well, yeah. Congratulations are in order, man. Just super fucking happy to hear the news, and it's incredible, dude.
Yeah, man.
It's exciting. Exciting. It was kind of planned, but kind of also not planned because, the whole thing with like, you're on birth control forever. It's going to take forever to... Apparently not when you're vegan. Apparently when you're vegan already and you're already taking all the supplements that you need to take, like... Happened within a month, so it happened super fast.
We're on a mission to make everybody vegan.
Hell yeah, man! That's the way to go. Way to go, man.
Yeah, Addy. If Addy won in the lottery tomorrow, he'd be like, I mean, it's just vegan thing. It's just
it is.
It just
It's a vegan lottery. The vegan scratch off. No animal byproduct was used to make the scratch off.
Everybody wins.
Hell yeah! Everybody wins.
You never lose. Yeah, man. But yeah, just want to.
Do you guys know the name? Did I tell you guys the name?
Yeah.
Oh no, you guys settled on the name
You
already?
told me.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be Penelope Iris. So with my last name Play, the initials are Pip. Well, that's gonna be the nickname.
That's a lovely name.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Are you? Is Pip going to be the nickname? Like,
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Dope.
She's going to play on the women's, U.S. national soccer team. The back of the jersey is going to say Pip on it. It's going to be balling, man. It's going to be awesome.
Handle,
absolutely,
or
man.
whatever the tech will be in the future.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, dope.
Well, what's the next thing after TikTok?
They've already got it in the works. They're probably testing it.
So
what is
boom.
Threads?
So
Does anybody know what Threads is?
Yeah, it's a Facebook one, the Instagram one.
Yeah, but like, what is it?
It's basically just like Twitter.
So I had a really interesting conversation yesterday. Went and watched Oppenheimer. We definitely need to have a convo, even though I know you two probably haven't seen it yet. Yes.
Nah, I saw Barbie.
Barbie, yeah. I think we have plans maybe to see that at some point this week, maybe Monday. I don't know. We'll see. But have thoughts on Oppenheimer. But I had an interesting conversation on the back end of it with my significant other about sort of global level threats. What should we be worried about? First of all, incredible movie, right? We can jump into it if you guys want, but just a broad overview of the movie. Incredible movie. I think one of the best from Nolan. Is it my favorite from Nolan? Maybe we'll see with time. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say any more than that because I hate when people say, "Oh my God, it's the greatest movie ever fucking made."
Yeah.
And then it's just like, now I'm going to be expecting it's gonna, So I'll let you all make that judgment for yourselves of the movie. But what the question that I brought up was, okay, so at one point in time, nuclear extinction was the threat. Still is to a relative extent, but I think mutually assured destruction is probably what's preventing all of us from bombing the shit out of each other, right? That we just know we're going to get retaliated against, and that's essentially the end of the world, right? And so, I think the closest we've gotten is obviously like the Cuban Missile Crisis. Also, this, I don't know if this is even remotely as close, but with Putin threatening to, use nukes, Kim Jong-un, that's at some point. And America's always good to threaten to, maybe not overtly saying we'll use nukes.
Yeah.
But definitely like you guys saw what we did before, right? We're just throwing that out there. You see what we're capable of, right? So America's always good for, some fuck shit like that. I don't think that's what we have to worry about. I think that the global level extinction threat isn't going to be as overt and as direct as nuclear holocaust. I think it's going to be something involving AI, and not even in the sense of like the fucking Terminator, but like in the sense of like, so for instance, and I'm not just saying this about social media because it's kind of a boring, not a boring conversation, but like okay, all right, social media is bad. Got it, we get it. But it's like the idea of the internet. Were we all supposed to have this much connection to each other? And what is that going to do for generations to come? I think millennials have a good idea in terms of like what it's done to us, in terms of how it affects us. I think I would argue that we've used it in a fairly responsible way. Maybe I could probably be proven wrong about that. But I think that our generation, because we know of a world without the internet, I think our relationship to it is fairly reasonable. The newer generations, though, don't know anything but it. And so I think it's changing the fabric of who we are as individuals, you know, and it's making it so that society operates a lot differently than it used to and at a faster pace. So it's like the idea of AI, it's already here, but we're trying to think of rules that were, you know, questions we should have been asking back in like 94. Those are the questions we're trying to solve now, but it's rapidly changing as we're sitting here. So anyways, I thought I'd throw that out there as a question.
What was the question? That was a long.
Oh, what do you think is like like in the World War II era, it was nuclear.
Yeah. What is the next?
Yeah.
Big
What's the
threat
actual
globally?
Is it still nuclear? Are we still thinking nuclear here? Or
I think nuclear is a stretch because I think we all are aware at this point that we're so interconnected that like let's say you bomb the shit out of like one like major powerhouse, right? Yeah. Globally, that is going to have ripple effects throughout the global economy that are probably like unforeseen that you can't really predict, right? And it may have like adverse effects. Like let's say you're China, or let's say you're North Korea and you like bomb the US, right? Like how is that going to impact like global commerce, right? How is that going to impact like global perception of you or your country as a world leader? So I'm hoping we're beyond the point of like nuclear shit.
Never beyond it.
I think whatever is next is probably going to be like digital. It's more so going to be like information, because you could, you know, let's say a foreign entity or foreign government accesses the water grid for like the US and like just shuts down the water grid or our telecommunication systems.
But wouldn't that arguably have the same effect though? Like, so for instance, if you destabilize America in any sort of way, or if America destabilizes any other powerhouse like China, Russia, whoever the fuck else there might be on a global stage, like any disruption to anybody, just like to your point. Yeah. I don't know if, but what I'm asking is, does that change based on if it's like nuclear of?
I think it's less like, I think it's going to be less like we're going to blow shit up and more so like we're just going to like starve them, right?
I know that.
Create conflict within their country and then let them like destroy themselves, right?
But they wouldn't though. Like, so for instance, if you shut off America's water grid, first of all, that destabilizes like the world economy. But then two, America's probably going to figure out pretty fucking quick, like, oh, okay, this is China. Or they don't even have to have they're just like, we think it's China. Let's bomb them. Like, yeah. You know, like, and so I feel like that still gets us back to where we're at. I think. Anyways,
yeah.
Before I keep going, you.
I always like these conversations. They're fun to have, yeah. But at the end of the day, we don't fucking know. We don't know. We can't predict it, right? And like we're also not in like the spaces where we even have like access to like that information, like when these threats are like a thing, or like let's say something does happen, right? Most people are not gonna have any fucking idea what to do. Because like, what can you really do?
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the point, right? Is that we don't have a fucking playbook for some of this shit. But I think that's why whatever's coming, because I think it feels like we're on the precipice of something. Like I don't know what I don't know what domino is going to fall, but it feels like we're teetering on the edge here. Just with the instances, just because the temperature outside, in terms of actually literally, but also just figuratively, like. It feels like, and this might be our own perspective because of where we might inhabit on the internet, like, or whatever circles we might run in, both physically as well as, you know, through the internet. But it just feels like things are getting to a boiling point of even more stratified.
Would you say that having recently seen Oppenheimer's making you think?
No,
this?
I thought this. Eddie might be able to attest to this. That's pretty much my feeling prior to Oppenheimer.
You just walk around thinking there's going to be a nuclear threat.
No, I'm not saying it's. In fact, I'm specifically saying it's probably not going to be.
Yeah. Or like there's a major event that's about to take place that's going to like.
Yeah, and this isn't. I know it's sounding conspiratorial-ish, if that's even how you say that, but it's okay. So for instance, the U.S. economy has been on sort of the teetering on the edge of a recession for like maybe 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case is. Post COVID, we were doing pretty well, but it seems like things have kind of gone up and then down.
Yeah.
And it seems like like they're everybody in Silicon Valley is getting fucking laid off. You know, all these tech companies are laying people off. It feels like right now we're kind of we don't see it because it's like super fractured. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I feel like it's bubbling though. You know what I mean? When you have that many people who are laid off, who don't, and this is kind of what we were talking about last week, who then don't have some sort of alternative, you know, because everybody's laying people off. Nobody's really hiring right now, you know, and I'm saying that figuratively. Of course, there are some people hiring, but
yeah,
you know, it's the true number is, I feel like, getting lopsided in terms of where they're laying more people off than are getting hired. But anyways, I'm not trying to be why am I finding it so hard to say what the word is?
A conspiracy theorist or something like that? Or
is there one word that describes conspiracist? Is that the thing? That's not a thing, right?
Let's go with it.
Yeah. It sounds like it. It sounds like it.
But it feels like there's and if you remember back, like we lived through a recession, right? Mm-hmm. Where it was one thing. It was housing. That's what caused it, and it caused a fucking avalanche. With this, it feels like there's so many different things that are on the, you know what I mean, on the pressure cooker. Whether it's housing, whether it's inflation, like all these things. And I'm probably to a person who fucking knows actually what they're talking about. I probably sound like an idiot right now, but I don't know.
It's probably someone who's like, I'm studying. I'm a financial analyst.
I'm an economist.
It's also the reason though why it hasn't collapsed. You know, because when you're looking at what happened in 2005, 2006 with the real estate market, you know, you were talking about adjustable rate mortgages all coming due pretty much at the same time. Yeah. Subprime mortgages, subprime lenders were just going crazy. So Dodd-Frank, combination of that and some housing policies have kept that at bay. So
Dodd-Frank.
Yeah, with credit cards and everything else.
No, I know what Dodd-Frank is. What I'm saying is that I don't know if that's keeping anybody.
No. And it's been rolled back like crazy, and with the Trump administration. Yeah. But it's also what's keeping the system from not completely collapsing is the fact that it's in so many different sectors where you're seeing downturns. So, for example, like in the mortgage industry, second lien home transactions are on the rise because one, there isn't enough housing, you know, for new home purchases. So you're really not getting those 5-1 arms, 10-1 arms, things like that. But in my industry where I, you know, do my job and we lend in the second mortgage industry, so, you know, people, because of increased housing prices, they do have more equity. They're taking out the money. So,
yeah,
but it will all come to a head eventually.
Exactly. So
but not anytime soon, you know.
Well, what is anytime soon?
Yeah. I mean, because within the next 5 years, probably not.
Well, what I'm saying is, any one sector. So you're looking at housing, right? What I'm saying is, I don't know if I doubt if it's going to be housing, but housing is not in good shape because of all these, say, corporations that are buying up these houses and are driving up the cost of homes. Period. Right. So nobody can afford homes,
right,
as it's
which
set.
Contributes to the inflation.
Exactly. That might not do it alone, but with a lot of different things happening at the same time. At least with the recession in 2009. There was something you could point to, be like, okay, we need to fix this specific thing right here. We need to adjust. We need to. That's why interest rates were so low for so long, right? Is because it was trying to counteract what happened with the housing market. At least in some way. Again, I don't really understand all this shit as somebody who's smart would, but from my understanding, it had to do with why we had low interest rates for so long. But what happens when it's like 5 different things at the same time? What happens if you have 5 different sectors that are just all on the precipice, and then one falls, and then they're like dominoes that continuously fall, you know?
So that's kind of my point though with it. It's right now you have so many different sectors that may be teetering, but it is easier for regulators to manage those. So, like when the private lending side from like, Silicon Valley Bank, for example, who was doing startup loans, when they crashed, everybody was in fear. Oh, the banking system is about to collapse. Well, that was a very specific sector of banking
very true.
that didn't have to do with everybody else.
Well, not necessarily, because there's not too long after that, there was actually another bank that went under.
Yeah, Fifth Third, or not Fifth Third. I forgot who they were, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
However, they had a very specific reason as well, because they had leveraged
these
their
are not
assets.
like public sector. It's not like Wells Fargo or like Bank of America.
I think that second bank was. But even if whether it was or it wasn't, what I'm saying is it might not actually have to. From what I understand, especially when you're talking about banking, it doesn't. It's not really about whether it happened in public or private. It's what is the public's perception of what's happening. Because if they believe that the banks are about to fail and everybody pulls their money out at the same time, then we're all fucked, because then the banks aren't going to be able to stay liquid in order to have enough cash in order to do what they do on a daily basis.
Right.
So if there's a run on the banks, whatever starts that chain it's just like a fucking nuclear explosion, right? Whatever starts the chain reaction doesn't really fucking matter. But once it gets started, you're not stopping it. It's going to happen.
But are you specifically now referring to, just kind of to draw back to like the mass extinction event? Like, are you talking about a mass extinction event, or are you just talking about like a global collapse in the economy? Because like they're two different things.
I think that's kind of what my argument is that I think everything's so fucking linked that when one part of the link in the chain breaks, then everything's going to crumble with it. One part of the reason why it kind of sucks that, or not, it's fortunate we're all able to communicate and be all, we can connect with people on the other side of the world. That's great. But what then happens is your dependencies on each other become linked. So then if you have issues over there, while that might make you stronger in some aspects, it actually makes you weaker in some aspects.
If one chain link breaks, it is going to have for sure like a ripple effect. Like I think right now it's like unemployment, housing crisis, like, inflation is like insane right now. Yeah. Also like food production, food logistics, it's getting harder and harder for us to like produce food at the rate that we're consuming it, especially certain foods in certain areas, and then like get those to grocery stores. So like if people start losing their jobs more, inflation increases the cost of groceries in grocery stores, people are gonna have to start deciding like, do I buy groceries, do I pay the mortgage, right? And then that exacerbates other problems. I don't fucking know, dude. Someone came onto this podcast. They're like, "Yo, I'm here to listen to some movie shit we're talking about."
Well, this has to do with the movie.
It does with Oppenheimer.
No, I mean, I haven't seen it. So,
but like, I personally wouldn't think like, as far as like a mass extinction event, I wouldn't be thinking that would be what would actually bring us there. I mean, for several reasons. Like, if the biggest threat to nuclear, winter would be Russia, there's a lot of reasons to suspect that Russia's nuclear arsenal, while it may be vast, is so outdated that they'd be so far behind in actually making a competent nuclear weapon to do enough damage. And quite honestly, I do think they're not that dumb to actually start what would be, a long-term mass extinction event. I personally think something like a CME, where like the sun releases plasma and, magnetic fields, those bursts happen constantly. I think the last one that just nearly missed the Earth was in 2012. And, had that happen, like you're talking about complete just, grids going down. I mean, once the grid goes down for everybody and nobody can communicate, that's it. I mean, you have lawlessness, you have everything.
But you're kind of making my point for me, is that it's the fact that we're all linked.
Correct, yes. But I'm just not thinking it's going to be in terms of a nuclear bomb anytime soon.
No, but notice specifically what I said. I said it wasn't going to be a nuclear, like it's not, I think we're not past nuclear, meaning, and I think I kind of disagree with what you said about like Russia. Like Russia doesn't actually have to like do anything that of significance. They just have to drop a nuclear bomb. Anybody, Kim Jong-un, whoever the fuck has a nuke, they don't have to do any damage with it. They just have to drop it, because once you drop it, all bets are fucking off. Like that's why it's having these like strong men like leaders, why we're playing with fire, because all they have to do is just one day be like, yeah, you know what, fuck it, I'm on my way out anyways. You guys are about to fucking arrest me or whatever, execute me in a public square. Cool. I'm just going to go ahead and drop this fucking nuke. How about that?
Hopefully there would be people other level heads in the room. They'd be like, yeah, we're not gonna let this one guy start a fucking war for no.
I mean, how many reports did we get of like when Trump was like, "Yo, can't we just fucking nuke him?" Like,
Yeah.
they're like, "Whoa."
Yeah, I think him
chill.
saying that
Homie.
is scary to a lot of people, but I think people who understands like that it's not. They're not actually gonna let this one guy do because you
I
need
don't know,
several
fam.
levels
If the
approvals in the government.
In our government, if the commander in chief is like, "Yo, we're doing this," I don't know. Like, I don't know what the protocol is there. Like, what is the protocol?
Yeah, and I bet it's not. He said it. Let's do it. I bet there are a lot of people, like whether it's like the fucking vice president, chief of staff, like military generals, like the people with the keys and
What
the
do you think
keys and the
happens now
codes.
when the president's like, "Yo, we're bombing whoever the fuck it is we're bombing"?
I think so. The president can definitely order strikes, and I think there's probably a lot of people who are in that like war room or whatever who might agree with him. Says like, yes, let's execute this. But I bet I would hope that if the president's like, hey, let's call us let's bomb that country, especially using like nuclear missiles, there would have to be lots of other approvals in order to like, hey, in order to get like that done. I'm sure he could order an airstrike over fucking like Syria or something like that. I feel like we do that all the time. But nuclear, I would hope it doesn't just come down to the president just saying it. Do it.
I don't know, dog. I think.
Yeah, I think we have checks and balances in our government to prevent shit like I mean, maybe in like fucking Cuba or Russia or like there's these presidents where they have like dictatorship. Maybe then it's a little bit like, hey, I said it, do it. But like, I don't think that's how it works.
But also keep
here
in mind,
the US.
like Russia's nuclear weaponry primarily is tactical nuclear weapons, which is not what Oppenheimer would be. Tactical nuclear weapons are smaller warheads.
Yeah, but again,
that can cause destruction. But
it's not about the destruction. It's about simply doing it. Like I think that's where we're at. It's not about like if Russia drops any nuclear device anywhere on not foreign soil, but like adversarial soil,
it would have to be
or whatever.
somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, obviously. It would, I mean,
because nuclear warheads, on submarines and ships, the U.S. already knows of. So if they get anywhere close to us to launching, we would be able to handle
that. But that's
that.
definitely like not my worries that they're going to hit the U.S. Like that's not my concern. My concern is that they're going to hit a U.S. ally. Like they're most likely
right. Yeah, NATO,
Ukraine,
somewhere NATO,
some NATO country. And once they drop it, it doesn't matter if the shit is like I'm not even sure if it matters if it's a dud or not. Like even if the shit doesn't like if it drops and like just that didn't really do much. It's the fact that they actually just dropped the nuke that all bets are off. Then because then what is what is the U.S.'s response? If
they drop it on NATO, then NATO is dropping it on them.
Exactly.
But you got to think about like what actually would NATO be dropping, because NATO would be dropping a larger warheads the scale of Oppenheimer.
But again, you're looking at it as just okay, Russia drops the bomb and then NATO drops the bomb on Russia, but then also Russia has like allies. Like Russia's buddy.
Russia has allies that don't want to get involved though. If you're talking India and China, for example, that are nuclear powers. Again, also smaller tactical warheads at their disposal.
Yeah, but Eddie, I feel
and
like
again, I'm not a military expert. I'm just reading articles here. So.
No, that's
let
fine.
me jump in here and
hold on. Let me get the one thing out.
Let's talk about some movies and shit.
We'll talk about
these fucking nuclear warheads. What are we doing?
We'll talk about Oppenheimer just one second. So let me get this out. You're looking at it as in total like the collateral damage from dropping the bomb. I'm looking at it as what does that destabilize? What is it? Because the U.S. make no mistakes. The U.S. is a you know what the U.S. is they're a handsome guy at the bar wearing a suit. You have your preconceived notion. Oh, this seems like a nice, well-meaning young man.
And he's about to roofie you.
He's about to roofie the shit out of you, dude. And you're looking at him like, oh yeah, no, that's Tim over there. He's fine, right? No, Tim's a fucking psychopath. That'll do anything, and that's what the fucking the U.S. is. And so what I'm saying is, as soon as Russia drops a bomb, especially like a nuclear device, then I think all bets are off. That's all I'm trying to say. And again, this is with the idea that I think the next extinction level event isn't going to be nuclear. I think it's going to be something else entirely. Something probably to do with AI. Something probably to do with the internet in some type of way. Maybe not Skynet type shit, but definitely something that isn't where our eyes are diverted now, because I feel like that's an old.
Yeah. Now bringing it back to Oppenheimer, didn't God? Why can't I think of the Nolan? Right?
Yeah.
Didn't he, in speaking with people in the AI world, didn't he say that they're all having their Oppenheimer moment where they're right now asking themselves, how far are we going to be willing to push this?
Yeah.
And what are going to be the ramifications
I don't know
of
if
it?
he said that, but I know that's the sentiment right now. Which
Yeah,
is,
well,
and this
within the scientific community.
yeah, it's just like I think there's some people who are like scientists and are like obviously like, hey, like this is just some new shit. We're trying to discover shit. But then what inevitably happens, which you know, after seeing Oppenheimer, it's very fucking clear that whatever you have, it's going to be weaponized in some way. Like there's not a thing that you're going to come out with that's like, yo, we just discovered like AI, like, or like, you know, like if they just put Skynet, like if some kid discovered how to create Skynet or some shit, tomorrow they're going to be implementing that shit in war. Like, you know, like it's going to be used for some sort of nefarious means, whether you as the creator want that or not. It's going to happen.
I think there are always movies about stuff like this, right? Oh, sorry. There's a little bit of background noise. Ad popped up on this article I pulled up. So I think there are always instances like these, or we see it in movies a lot, right? Where it's like some scientists are like, oh, well, I'm just curious about like, you know, investigating this thing, you know, like Hulk, right? You know,
Gamma rays.
What was the issue there? Hulk's father was like, I'm really interested in this gamma shit, and then he
I
like,
think it was him himself. I think it was Bruce himself.
yeah. Well, so like in the original movie, the one with Eric Bana, right? I watched it the other day. His father like essentially like tests on himself. He like injects himself, and then he like has a son, and then that like whatever shit was in his bloodstream is then passed on to his son, right?
Was that really the plot of the first Hulk movie?
And then the gamma radiation just kind of like unlocked what was already in his. So he
was already born as the Hulk. He just needed some gamma rays to hit him.
Yeah, he had something in his blood, and then it like when the gamma hit him, then it like exposed whatever was there, right? Which I like that version more so than like the version of you know, Bruce Banner is just like, you know, one day he just gets angry and then you know.
No, I don't think
it's
that was
here
ever
now.
No, I think it always started as
him testing on himself.
Yeah, he was like fucking around with some gamma shit. I think maybe he was like, I don't know if he was dying from something or he was just like, I think he discovered something and then he was like, all right, let me test this myself, and it just went wrong.
Yeah,
and he became the fucking Hulk.
Like, what was Mark Ruffalo's Hulk? Like, what was how did
they
he
never
become
really
the
explained.
Hulk again? He just was
by the time we saw
and
him.
then Edward Norton. I think was Edward Norton testing on himself?
Well, again, I think he was already the Hulk by the time we get to that movie. Because I remember he was on the run. I remember in that movie.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah,
see, this is why people shit on the Eric Bana Incredible Hulk movie.
Yeah, it's because it's stupid.
I didn't think
that's why.
I thought how he became I thought that's the only movie that actually explored how he became what he was.
I mean, it's just kind of like Spider-Man, where it's like I feel like we've rehashed that so many fucking times. Like, so for instance, like with the Lou Ferrigno Hulk back in the day, I think every fucking intro they describe what the fuck happened.
Yeah, they told you.
We're
We're gonna give you a quick rundown here, in case you fucking idiots forgot
like
from
the
last
fucking
episode.
Preview or the callback to the previous episode always started with like we were in the lab. It's like, motherfucker.
Yeah,
you're on episode 3000. I think we can.
Yeah, I mean it was a while ago. It was a lot of idiots back then. But anyway, so. One good thing that did happen recently, right? When we talk about like looking at AI and like how that shit is going to like impact what the future looks like. So, you know, I think it was like Google, Amazon, and Meta. They've all agreed to like this I guess like agreement or guardrails, right? That the Biden administration pushed on a lot of these large companies. Now, let's be real. We all know guardrails are bullshit. It's probably just to make
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, it's probably just to make the public feel comfortable. Like, hey, the federal government has put up guardrails, and then these like large companies like Google, Amazon, they're like, sure, we agree to them. But like, there's from what I understand about like these guardrails, right? There's no actual like
there's nothing
penalty.
There's nothing them to actually do it. Sure.
Exactly, right? And there's like no body of government or organization that is going to be policing, you know, Amazon and Google and Meta and Microsoft and OpenAI to make sure that they're following the guardrails. It's just, and it's probably just a PR thing. And the companies, these companies are like, hey, you have guardrails, great, we'll follow them. But there's no actionable thing behind it. I would love to. That's why I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Because I would love to, you know, just we could chat about what would happen if this happened, what could happen if this happened, what would we do if Russia dropped a nuke on us? Like,
the thing about it, man, is the guardrails. Like, you're right. There's no actual reason for them not to do it. And then you got to think about all of the people who will do this on their own.
Yeah.
All of the programmers, all of the nerds that sit, in the mama's basement, who are going to create something that's just going to be put out into the world that, you're not going to be able to control. And then what? Then you're just screwed. Then it's all out there. It's like, who cares about guardrails? You're gonna go get Timmy in the basement and lock him up.
Well, and the reason why,
we should,
We
fuck
should,
him up.
Timmy. Yeah.
I think even if there's nothing you like, let's say some nerd in a basement, right? Like does create some like world changing tech or whatever, and it's like once it's out on the internet, it becomes like Ultron and has a fucking mind of its own. What should happen to the person who creates it, right? Like, should we still be worrying about that, or is it just like, let's solve this problem? Because it's like, can that person destroy the thing that they created, or is it just out of their hands? Should they be punished, or should we be focused on the bigger thing?
I think that's one of the central themes of Oppenheimer, meaning that your creation inevitably goes beyond you, right? So, at that point of creation, sure, you might be the creator of it, but once it gets out into the world, it's Rapskis.
Yeah, but like, does that person, should they be held like responsible or accountable?
What I'm saying is, holding them responsible means what to the public?
I mean, you've seen the person who actually did the thing be actually held. That
that's,
won't stop the thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It won't stop
that's
it.
vengeance at that point, right? Of saying, okay, well, we want to bring this person to, like, after the thing's dealt with, maybe we can have that conversation. But if they fucking make Skynet and Skynet's running loose in the world, okay, sure, we might go to the person and be like, yo, how the fuck do we reverse engineer this shit to like that? But at that point, it's like, condemning that person is like the least of our worries. It's like, how do we get the shit under control?
I don't know. Somebody should send somebody to whoop his ass or something like that. We're going to try and figure this out, but send somebody to fuck him up. Hold this grenade.
You're very big on like, you need something to happen that's like tangible.
Well, I think that, sure, yeah, because I do believe in like punishment, right?
No,
like,
but I'm saying
individual actions.
What is the punishment? But my argument has always been is like, well, what does the punishment mean when that's not like that? Like, if somebody robs a store, right, and it continues to, like, if there's a store on the corner and then it always gets robbed, right? Maybe it's the same person, maybe it's somebody new who robs it, right? At a certain time, I can lock as many people up as I want to lock up. But at a certain point, I have to ask, well, why are the people robbing the store? Like, what is the underlying reason? And until we actually deal with the underlying reason, I understand that somebody needs to get punished if they robbed a store, right? But at the same time, if it happens so many fucking times, at what point am I going to stop and be like, maybe just locking everybody up isn't really helping the situation. Maybe that's creating more of a problem.
What if you're the store owner?
Yeah, I would ask the same exact question.
You would want the robberies, because it's your business, right? You would still want them to address the people who are robbing your store. Or maybe you as a store owner need to beef up your security. I had a bitch on you. Every customer who walks in the door, hey, get what you want, get the fuck out.
I've heard of a gun referred to as a bitch on me. That's
what?
I've never heard.
You don't listen to enough rap music.
Yeah. Fair enough. That is true. Yeah.
So, but like, I think you can address both, right? Like, you can have, it's not like everyone has to be focused on the same thing, right?
Generally
to solve
not,
the problem.
especially here in America, I don't think we do, right? Like, so our solution for everything is, just put them in jail.
So our solution for a lot of things, yes, is put them in jail, even like, the non-violent crimes. But like, let's say someone does something like creates like a program, like an AI program, right?
Yeah.
That like disrupts like the banking industry, right?
Yeah.
And now we have like something at a national scale that's causing like massive disruption for our daily social lives, right?
Yeah.
And it's a problem, and it's a problem that's growing, right? It's an AI tool, and it's like learning on its own. It's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. I do still think that the person who created it, like, should that person not be punished at all for this thing that they did, or are we just like, you did it, but it's already like on its own, so we got to focus on this now, and you're scot-free.
It depends on the time that you're talking about it, and it also depends on like what do you think solves the, like, why? So again, why did the person do it? Was it a mistake? Was it on purpose? Did they gear it towards something, or was it something that just got beyond them? I don't know. All these questions are still linger in the air, but also at this point in time that the thing is running rampant, that's the least of our fucking worries. It's like saying, like, when Oppenheimer created the nuclear bomb, for the world to be like, you fuck boy, yeah, and then be like, all right, we're gonna throw you in a fucking jail. And it's like, but the shit's already out. Like, it's
so what do you think happens to him then? What happens? Like, if the thing is already out,
who gives a shit? It's already done.
So the person who, in your mind, the person who created the thing, the person who, like, again, to your point, whether like they did it intentionally or if it's just something that got out of their hands, like
it depends on their ability to repeat the situation. If they have the ability, like, so for instance, if you lock Oppenheimer up, or I'm sorry, if he made the bomb and then you could isolate it and be like, all right, lucky that didn't get out, although it literally immediately got out thereafter the bomb was made. If he has the ability then to create another one or share the secrets, okay, I can see, which kind of was the case.
more than likely he would.
No, fair enough. But if you're talking about like some sort of AI shit, yeah, like I think the first priority is to deal with the thing itself, and then worry about concerns of, is this going to be repeatable? Because if it's a case where it can be repeatable, okay, we got to do something. We got to figure out. We got to put the shit on lockdown so that shit doesn't happen again, right? But there are also different ways of handling the situation outside of just putting somebody at the bottom of a jail. At least I think personally.
Nah, fuck that, dude. Like, if somebody creates an AI program that just like starts fucking
What if
shit
the
up,
government? Are we just going to be like, let's lock all the
what if
people
the
in
government creates it?
Yeah, which is more than likely is going to be the case.
Probably. There's probably like a group of people who did it. Yeah, put them in a box.
But what is it? Okay, so this is my problem with that ideology, right? Is that, and I don't think it's actually an ideology, but it's that idea, is that, okay, you put those people in a box, right? Especially today where everybody's so interconnected. There's going to be other people who are just going, like, it's like saying, oh, we can isolate MAGA, right? If we just like lock Trump up, or just, it's like, no, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to keep growing. Like,
well, I think people need to see that there are actual like punishments and consequences for actions, right? So like, let's say someone does create an AI tool that in some way fucking destroys like our banking system as we know it today, right? To say like, oh, that person created the thing and it's out there, there's nothing we can do about it. Like, we need to address the fact that it's out there destroying these programs. And
it's Mr. Robot.
I haven't seen that show, but I know I do hear it's good. But like, again, the person who created the thing, right? Like, I think what you're saying is, unless they can recreate it, or if there's chances that they could like share information, that like, should they not be punished? Should they not be jailed? Should they not have any like actual consequences for it? Then that would set a precedence that, like, to anyone else.
What is your priority? The thing gets loose. That's this thing that's.
I don't have to choose. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I can.
No, you do. You only have a finite number of resources. If this person's either on the run or missing or whatever the case is, they know they're going to get in some shit.
The federal government, like the FBI, like you could have a team of people addressing the issue, but we also have a team of people. Go find that person and like, bring them in, see if we could like use that person's knowledge because they created the system, like undo it or find a backdoor or something like that. And if not, then no, I think that person would be too great a threat to just allow to fucking roam around free. Because I think human curiosity would, inspire that person. I'm going to try to do it again. Let me try and do it better. Let me share. Let me connect with a group of people.
You have like it's arguably, whether it's a scientist or like it's somebody who's just like dicking around or whatever. You're telling me you would put them in jail because this thing, like, even if their intention wasn't what it ended up being, like, even if they made this thing, you'd be like, nah, you got to go to jail.
Sometimes we do things, right? And our intent was not to cause harm.
Stark up?
Fuck
you
yeah.
put him, damn.
Yeah.
Oh, you was with Captain America hard on Civil War. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think sometimes people do things that have like great consequences, right? Unintended consequences.
No vision.
And
we wouldn't have had Vision if that.
Fuck Vision. He didn't do shit when Thanos showed up. He didn't do. He could have.
This is actually really.
Yeah, we saw What If. Fuck Vision. He did nothing. Yo had the Mind Stone right on his forehead. Didn't do shit. So no, you got to go to jail.
No, I think that's a very hard line to take, and I think what it does is I think it gives you a sense of that you're doing something, but I don't think it actually, like, so for instance.
So my question to you: what do you do then? Do you do nothing? Does that person have zero consequences for creating this program? I think that
depends on a lot of different questions. Okay, let's thought experiment. Right? We create a new country. It's a country of me, you, Addie, and 7 other people, 10 people in total, right? Okay. You're appointed the chief, whatever the fuck, of the country, right? So it's your job to make sure the shit is running. And if anybody does anything like this, it's your job not only to clean the mess up, but also to figure out what to do with them afterwards, right? You only have the resources for you, meaning that you're the person who's going to have to do the things. You have to choose between whether you chase after the person or if you try to clean up the mess, right? What is your priority? If you have to have a choice.
In this particular very specific circumstance, my priority would be to address the problem.
Okay.
Once the problem is solved, then to address the person who created the problem.
And then your idea to how you deal with a person is it's just jail. That's essentially like the idea.
It is. I mean, depending on what the problem is, there would
was a mistake.
have to be.
They didn't. It was They let Ultron get. Tony let Ultron get out. Yep. He's one of the 7 people that joining us.
We're sorry. We're on an island, right?
Yeah.
I need you to go float out to sea. We cannot have you present too great a risk.
Wait, but okay. So, I guess what my natural question is in that case is like, okay, this person who creates this thing. I'm sure he created it, and then once it's out of the bag, it's like, these ideas are like it's like the idea of like what Inception, right? Ideas are like viruses, right? So like once they get into your fucking head, it's that they're pretty much just there, right? So this guy or woman might make this thing, but what if it isn't isolated? What if it isn't just them? What if it's somebody's trying to pick up the work after them? It's like why we have this like war on drugs, right? When it's like stupid, like we don't need a war on drugs. We need more rehabilitation centers, or it just needs to be legalized, and there needs to be sets of rules. But it's like when you just say that people need to be jailed for shit. Well, then, like then you get this like weird.
I don't. If war on drugs is a good example, right? Like, I don't think drug users should be jailed.
No, drug dealers. Forget
I don't even think.
For a second.
I think some drug dealers should be jailed, depending on like
what makes the
because you are intentionally selling a product that is destructive.
Let's go talk to Pfizer,
to your customers, right?
Yeah.
So Pfizer, pharmaceutical companies, like, whether we like it or not, they're operating within the law, right? So the problem there,
because they help create the laws.
So true, but
Sorry,
like Pfizer is not, as a company, right? More than likely, it is abiding by the law. I'm sure they're breaking some, but they're abiding by the laws. And yes, you're right. They pay lobbyists to like get into the ears of politicians to create laws for themselves. Like, they're essentially writing their own laws, right? Mm-hmm. Now, that's a difficult hill to climb. That requires laws and regulation changing at like the government or at the state and federal level, right? Mm-hmm. But if we're looking at like drug dealers and drug users, right? Like, I'm talking about like motherfuckers in this area. We know that the person selling crystal meth or cocaine or heroin, right? Like, we know that they are actually distributing an illegal narcotic, and if they're doing it at a rate or in a way that is like actually destructive and like causing harm to the community, I do think that person should be jailed and arrested. I don't think the drug user should be, just like I don't think like the prostitute should be. I think like maybe the pimp should, right? If he's running 10 bitches, don't arrest the bitches, arrest him. The drug dealer.
Wait, so I don't understand. So you wouldn't arrest the prostitutes themselves, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just like I'm not going to arrest the person like using the drugs who has an addiction. That person needs rehabilitation. I
just don't understand that logic. So you wouldn't arrest the prostitutes, but you would arrest a pimp?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Because
they're not even the ones who are doing the thing.
Well, if you remove him, right? You remove like
the prostitutes are still going to be prostitutes. They're just not going to have a pimp.
Well, so a lot of the like like drug addiction, right? I would say like maybe like there's like addiction there too, right? So if you remove him, then you might have the opportunity to rehabilitate the women, right? If you remove,
why did the women need it? Some people they choose this as a way of life.
Yeah, sure. Like I'm not getting into like the very small granular nuances.
That isn't small grain nuance.
Follow me.
I'm following you.
If you remove him,
yeah,
you might have an opportunity to rehabilitate the women. If you remove the person actually selling the drugs within the community, the person who's like getting it from, wherever you're getting the drugs and then distributing it within the community, if you remove that person, the community might have a chance to rehabilitate, right? If given like the resources and the information and like the consideration by like local authorities, if they fucking care or not, mm-hmm. right? So I think it is a matter of, that's not going to solve the problem like full stop, but it will give the community or give the people impacted by it a chance to rehabilitate if you remove that person, that source.
So the natural, and sticking just with the drug dealer, because I don't think the prostitute thing, I don't think that works in your example, but fair enough. We'll put that to the side for now. In terms of drug dealers, well, then in that case, like, how do we explain like the quote unquote opioid crisis, right? Where it's not drug dealers, it's people are getting addicted to these narcotics, or what do you call them? What is it? Opioids?
Opioids. Yep.
That are being prescribed to them, and that's how they get hooked in the first place, right? Whether it's they're being overprescribed or somehow they're getting a hold of all of these drugs, it's not drug dealers on the street. Well, I mean, they probably are getting it, but it's it's kind of like what you're talking like. In this case, I'm confused at where you're choosing to place the blame, because in this case, it would be like somebody like Pfizer who I'd go to, like, what the fuck? You're just creating all of these drugs. Do people actually need these drugs? No, but you're still creating them, and also putting your thumb on a scale for doctors to prescribe it, right? Meaning that doctors get paid more, or whatever the case is, if they prescribe certain medicines over others. No matter what, no matter if people are getting addicted to them or not, or if they even fucking need them in the first place, like they get prescribed all sorts of like fucking crazy shit. If it's like, I got hangnail, and it's like, well, all right, here's Vicodin. It's like, what the fuck? Like,
I think this is the problem like society runs into, right? Where we know that there are many problems, right? Like there's not like one, when it comes to drugs, there's not one problem and then one solution will solve that one problem. There are many problems that need many different solutions. So like when we talk about like at the state and federal level, these big pharmaceutical companies that are producing drugs that are somehow ending up on the street that people are getting addicted to and dying, right? Like opioids, like, right? You need government, you need state regulation, you need like laws and things like that to address that, right? Because again, Pfizer, are they technically breaking any laws? Is Pfizer on the street selling drugs? No.
But for a second, reason with me though. Like if they're a part of crafting, like, and this isn't something that I think can just be glossed over as in like, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about that, so fuck it. It's like that matters, because then when you start when you look at the difference between them and then a common drug dealer, it's like how people like make fun of like Batman, right? Where it's like Batman spends his nights jumping from building to building, beating up fucking petty crime people, right? When he's a part of a fucking system that's whether it's, you can even argue like Arkham, or, it's like this fucking revolving door of, hey, we're going to take these people, we're just going to fucking jail them, or I guess, I don't know if you want to call it a psychiatric ward. I think that's what it's supposed to be, but it's really just a fucking jail. And then, they're going to get let out after a certain time, and then they're going to do something, and we're just going to send them, and it's just like revolving door. Instead of trying to actually solve systems, Batman just wants to beat people up at night.
Batman is, again, many problems, many solutions. Batman is looking at it like within like myself as an individual, I have the ability, the resources to, address the street level shit, right?
But he has money to address
absolutely,
the
yeah. You're right, for sure. Batman could be, instead of dressing up and crusading, at night, as the Dark Knight, he could just be like, hey, I'm going to use my power and wealth and influence to impact shit at like the state, federal level that might have a greater impact on reducing crime in Gotham City. So yeah, I think the argument around whether Batman is like really just like a rich billionaire asshole beating up on low level criminals, like I think that's kind of true. But back to what I was saying, big problems, many solutions. I'm not saying like let these pharmaceutical companies skate, but like that's a bigger problem that requires a bigger solution. And unfortunately, those things take more time. Smaller problem.
So is it just time based, meaning that it'll take more time to solve that? So let's kind of ignore that in favor of, I see this drug dealer on the street selling drugs.
Why do we feel like we have to ignore, why do we feel like we have to put all of our time and attention on one thing and completely ignore other things? Like we need to address the opioid crisis at the pharmaceutical levels.
This goes on the idea of like, what do you think is the solution? I personally think at least part of the solution, maybe not the entire solution, but at least a large chunk of the solution is legalizing it. Meaning that if you decriminalized it, then I think that changes the dynamics. Then you won't give as much power to like all these cartels or even like the drug dealers themselves, right? If I can go to CVS and get and buy some fucking weed or whatever the case is. And I'm not saying that this is a smart idea to be selling fucking weed at CVS, although they do sell cigarettes, so fair enough.
I think CVS probably sells shit that's like that is
probably a little stronger,
much more harmful than weed. I feel like if they sold weed, they probably would do better at like people just come in, smoke something. Like, you know what? I'm okay. But instead, they're like, no, we got all those other drugs. You need antidepressants and you need like something to get you like hyped back up.
For sure.
You got to take these three things to balance yourself.
So that's why I'm saying, like I think you were saying, like, okay, like why is it that we feel like we need to concentrate over here instead of concentrating at like. I think if you do something as wide sweeping as legalizing it, then I think you change that dynamic. Now, there's still a long fucking way to go, even after you legalize it. But I think that's at least a step in the right direction in terms of making it make more sense. Like, there's no reason why fucking weed should be a Schedule I drug, right? Like, that just makes no fucking sense outside of you're intending to jail people because of this. Whether you think it's actually harmful to them or not, it doesn't really, like, for weed to be this on the same level as like fucking like fentanyl or some shit, or that crocodile shit. Like, it's insane. That's insane. Or heroin.
Yeah, I think.
Tunde,
Yeah.
do you have any studies or any reason to point to legalizing opiates as the solution? Like, is there anything that you're basing that off of?
Yeah, basing it off of then you like just the logic of then you reduce the need for, like, it's like say like in Colorado, like I couldn't point to you to like a specific study or anything like that, but say like with Colorado, it's going to reduce the need to go to your street hustler or whatever the case is in order to get whatever it is that you need. You can go to a place and they sell it, and it's regulated at least in some way in that case, versus hey, when you when you just buy it off of somebody, you don't know what the fuck's in that shit. But if you at least have sort of like a list or whatever the case is, then it becomes something that you can actually like monitor at least in some way. Now that's one aspect to it. There are a lot of different aspects, and I'm not even saying that this is going again solving like the issue, but at least is a step in a direction that's different from what we're doing now, because we've been doing the same shit for how fucking long, and it's yielded the same exact results, if not worse.
No, I get what you're saying. My question though, like, was more towards like, so like the NIH did a study from 2017 to 2020, I believe it was, right before the height of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at the opioid consumptions. Obviously the biggest crisis is in the United States, but then they started looking at Europe, and the countries that had the significant amount of increase in opioid consumption were all countries that were part of the UK. So, you're talking about obviously England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, places like that. Even Ireland, because they're right next to Northern Ireland. And it all correlated to when the Conservative Party, Boris Johnson's party, took over power and then started stripping away the Universal healthcare system, adding privatized, system into their medical, system. And that's when companies, like a Pfizer and all these other companies, Johnson & Johnson would come in, start selling opioids. All of a sudden you see that huge spike. So I would venture to say that, if you did have some sort of universal healthcare system where people could have access to medications when they needed it, proper healthcare, that would help to go along with what you're saying. With what you're saying is hey, like, if we do have it, accessible to people, then they wouldn't have to go to their local, corner place. Because generally these kind of addictions, I don't want to like blanket it, but they generally start with some sort of, pain that you had, whether it's, a major injury, car accident, like whatever it is, and then you get hooked on it. Yes, I understand some people gradually like move up, to use something as a gateway drug and then move up to the hard stuff. But it does seem like privatization of, medicine has led us to this opioid crisis. And you have a clear example of how it ended up happening in Europe, where literally the next country after the UK is Germany. Now they're like on a much lower level, but they have a semi-privatized system that they ended up, going to, I think in like 2005 or something like that. Don't quote me on that date, but they saw an increase too as soon as, doctors could, become legalized drug dealers.
Yeah, so that happened in Oregon too. So like, in Oregon, in, I think it was like 2020, they passed, it was like Measure 110, right? It was like the law essentially legalizing small like amounts of drugs that included cocaine, heroin, LSD, methamphetamines, and oxycodone, right? And then in the state of Oregon, like the year afterwards, they saw actually, I think it was like, where's the number here? Oregon increased 39. So drug overdose deaths in Oregon increased 39.4% the year after the Bill 110 was created, right? Mm-hmm. And so that increased at almost double the rate of like the national overdose death rate, which was really interesting. So the state legalized it, mm-hmm. and they saw drug-related overdoses increase at twice, almost almost triple the rate because it was 39.4 was
how much
Oregon's,
did they,
and then the U.S. was 13.8, so almost triple the rate of.
Do you know what their
US.
funding was? Like funding for their program versus like how much they put into the actual program? Because I think what my fear is with some of these places that implement this, they don't actually put the necessary resources behind it. It's sort of kind of like I think what you're talking about, Addie, in terms of like you have to kind of do it in concert with things. Like so you can't just legalize it, but then not have some sort of it would go leaps and bounds further in terms of helping it if you also had some sort of like universal health system in order to sort of counteract. So you're not just saying like open season for everybody who's addicted, but you can actually give them help as well.
For sure.
Right? But the idea is to just decriminalize it so that you're not giving so much power to all these, these drug dealers, so to speak, or you're just tossing the drug dealers in jail. You're actually then going from, and my only argument, or not my only argument, but I think what I'm mainly saying is that you keep making a distinction between somebody like Pfizer and a street level drug dealer because the government's saying, hey, this is legal and this is not. But what I'm saying is there's not so much a difference between them. It's just one has a multi-million, if not billion-dollar business that's the fucking it's LLC'd in Delaware, and the other is just slinging shit on this corner. Like that's the main difference. And just because something's legal, I don't think that just automatically makes it right.
Yeah. So then like I think what that does, right, when we start to say, oh, we need to look at Pfizer like we look at like a street level drug dealer, I think that like muddies the water, and then you end up at a situation.
How's that muddy the water?
It ends up in a situation where you have no fucking clue of what to do and where to go because you're treating everything the same.
So
like
just treat them differently because it's easier for us
treat
to
them differently because they are different, right? Like
How, according to who?
Pfizer, just like common sense. Pfizer's a corporation that is operating.
So you're telling me if the drug dealer gets a corporation and does the same exact shit that
if that drug dealer starts a business and starts operating within the law and like sells drugs through those means,
what law are you saying? I'm talking about the difference between.
Do you really think we should treat companies that like are in the pharmaceutical industry the same way that we treat like drug dealers that are like on the street selling drugs?
Yeah, if they're doing the same shit.
100%.
Yeah,
that makes no sense because
how does that make any sense?
If they are different things, why are we treating them the same?
You know what this reminds me of is when, and this is going to be loaded, but I'm preparing you for the fact that it's going to be loaded. Is like when people like it's actually the example that I use with how America's viewed in terms of like, oh yeah, you're the nice looking person at the bar. It's like something's just grandfathered in just because it's like, oh, this looks like a thing, so therefore it must be fine, right? The corporation, they're a corporation, so by default, whatever they're doing must be legal, right?
Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like,
how is that not what you're saying?
Corporation is what? It's just like it is a legal. It's an entity that has filed all the necessary filings and paperwork to be able to call itself a corporation, right? Mm-hmm. So when you talk about treating the like street level drug dealer like you treat the pharmaceutical companies, like how would you go about doing that? Like, do you arrest and
decriminalizing it? I've said it 5 times.
So yeah, you decriminalize it. If we look at Oregon, if we just use that as a, just a microcosmic.
I don't know what the particulars are with that. Meaning that you have to have.
I can't find those details anywhere, but like they did this at the state level. I'm sure there was like a decent amount of funding that went to it. There were health care programs that went to it. And I was looking at one article, it was like less than 1% of like drug users in the state of Oregon that like use these services to get like free syringes and free like drug paraphernalia to use.
And then I would find that to be strange. Okay, well, why did 1% like there's something wrong with that? If you have programs in place and less than 1% of the people are using the program to either get free syringes or whatever, that means they're still out on the street doing whatever it is they're doing.
It wasn't 1% that like used the paraphernalia. It was 1% of drug users who like went to locations where they offered like free syringes and things like that. I think we're saying the same thing. 1% of those people utilize the state's healthcare resources.
I know we're saying the same thing.
Okay, so I thought you misunderstood. Yeah, so like now maybe those people don't want to, like a lot of people who are on drugs don't want to receive help.
And also, how long was this? This was a 3-year span?
Yeah, so this is 2020, and this article that I was like looking at was 2023. So it's 3 years removed from the legalization of.
And I would also add in shit like this. It takes time, right? Like it's not like you do some shit and then 3 years later the shit is going to be like, all right, we're cooking on all cylinders here. It's like no, it's going to take fucking time. What is it? Is it Poland? What European country like actually literally decriminalized all of at a you might or it was Portugal. It was Portugal that decriminalized it, right? And I think it was over the course of like 10 years they were watching it. I think they decriminalized it somewhere.
Yeah,
in
it does
the
take
mid-2000s.
time for these things to like actually show results, right?
Well-
but I think if you're gonna do something like like let's say you decriminalize like opioids, right, at this federal state level, it will take time in order to like see like a positive effect, within the community or within like society as a whole.
Yeah.
At that same time, while you are doing these things at the state and federal level, I do think that their action does still need to be taken at like the, at
After
the
you
community level
decriminalize it?
after you to make sure that people aren't taking advantage of the system, right? Because like,
What is taking advantage of the system in that
so
case?
let's say you decriminalize drugs, right? Let's
Yeah.
say you decriminalize fucking Molly, and I can just go to CVS and I can get like let's say the state will allow you to get like 10 pills per whatever, right? More than likely there are going to be like systems in place that will dictate how you
I
can
would
get these drugs.
certainly hope,
right?
yeah.
Now I can take advantage of that system. So if I have a driver's license, if I don't have like a criminal record, and I walk into CVS and I get my 10 pills, right? What can I do? I can take those out on the street and sell it to the people who like don't have a driver's license or who can't walk in
Who
because
doesn't have a driver's license?
a lot of people. Do you think everyone
A
in the
lot of people don't have driver's
so
license.
do you think like the crackheads that we see on the side of the streets like
How
leaning
many
over?
people do you think are crackheads on the side of the street?
Well, in the area that we live, like there's high drug use, like in this area, right?
High drug use. What I'm saying is,
I'm talking about Pigtown. There are a lot of people in Pigtown that probably do not have a driver's license.
As a part of the population of Pigtown, what percentage would you say is addicted to crack or whatever drug?
So let's forget that part, right? Because I want you because I think you're going to get like super granular. That's not what
That's
I'm
not
doing. So
granular.
listen,
It's
let's
trying to
say
ask the logical
regulation
question of what you're
asks that you have a valid driver's license, right, in order to like use the services at CVS to get your pills, right, get your Molly. I would imagine that there would be a percentage of the population here within Pigtown alone that could not do that, right, for many reasons, right? Let's say you couldn't have a felony on your record. That might eliminate like 10% of the people in this area. So for the people who can, right, because I have a driver's license and I don't have a criminal record, I can go in, get these drugs, and I can take advantage of that and use it against the people who don't have it. Say, hey, oh, you have a criminal record? You have a driver's license, but you have a criminal record, you can't get it here. The pills that I got for $10, I'm going to sell it to you for like, each pill costs me $5 per pill.
Wait,
I'm going
and
to sell
you
it to you
think
for
that's
20.
a worse scenario than them just buying it from them out the gate?
Buying it from CVS out the gate?
No. Buying it from, because the system we have in place.
No, I'm not saying it's worse. What I'm saying is like there will still be people, like if you legalize drugs, there will
There's
still be
people
people
that
who
are-
take
this
advantage
is
of
like
the system,
saying- there's
and
a-
you need to also there needs to be like punishment for
Yeah.
those people who manipulate and take advantage of the system.
Yeah,
so you're top down,
saying,
bottom up.
This is like saying we shouldn't have any sort of like public like welfare because there are people who take advantage of like the welfare system. Is like,
No, it's not.
of course.
No,
How-
it's not.
how is it not?
It's saying that like there will be people, like if we legalize drugs, there will be people who take advantage of the system.
You're talking about there being a public system, right? And people
Public
taking
system.
advantage of that system.
people like public system with regulation. Like not anybody can just walk in and get it, right?
With regulation, whatever you
Yeah.
want to say. I'm saying it's fine if you like. It's hard to disagree with that in terms of like it's the same as like if you have any public thing, people are going to take advantage of it. It's going to happen. People took advantage of the PPP shit, right?
Yeah.
So people took advantage of unemployment, right? There's going to be people to take advantage of it, and to say we shouldn't do XYZ program because
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm saying
What are you
that
saying?
there will be people that will take advantage of it. So those people,
To
you
what
still
end are you
need
saying that,
you
though?
still need policing at like at the community level to make sure that people like the drug dealers, right? You still need policing to make sure that
Okay.
people don't new drug dealers aren't created or emboldened in those communities
But they
taking
wouldn't-
advantage of a public
I don't
system.
think that they're going to be emboldened, because they would be emboldened if it was still illegal to sell whatever drugs at CVS, and they're not going to do this, by the way. Just we all know that they're not going to be selling fucking
Like if I'm a drug dealer, I'm like,
crack
oh, that shit is
at
legal now. We can just
CVS.
go get it from there. Cool. I'm gonna go get it from there, and then I'm gonna identify the population or the people in the community who can go get it from there, and I'm just gonna take full
but
advantage of those people.
My only point to you in that case is then that's so you're serving so much smaller a sector or whatever the case is, and then on to boot on that, then whatever you're selling them, at least in theory, unless you're just going behind the scenes and then cutting that shit with whatever, is is going to be regulated in some way, right? Like it's still regulated. That whatever you're selling them in that case, again, assuming that anyways, I think my main point with this is that yes, of course there still should be guardrails in place, but you're dealing with a different game than if it's just all still criminalized and those drug dealers that are selling on the street. The main point I'm trying to make to you on that is the drug dealers that are on the street aren't super dissimilar from just because you wear a suit and you fucking, you sit at a computer all day and, you make some phone calls and send emails. It doesn't mean the shit that you're doing is truly any different than what the drug dealers do on the street. In fact, one of your favorite shows, Power, it shows us how fucking similar both worlds actually are. In fact, I think that was one of the main points of the show is that all of these fucking systems run basically the same exact way, right? Maybe one is legal, one is illegal, right? But it's the same shit.
Yeah. I think what happens is, and we can move on from this. We're going to spend way too much time.
For sure.
I think what happens is like people have a tendency to look at corporations as like the corporation is a person. And it's just like, oh, well, just arrest Pfizer, right? Like you can't arrest Pfizer, right? And the reason is, like, Pfizer is a company made up of many people. And it's like, who would you arrest? Would you arrest the CEO, the CFO? Do you arrest the lead scientist? Do the interns get arrested too? So it's like,
do you know what's hilarious about what you're saying? Sorry, it's just it's so ironic because I think they just passed a law that corporations, at least in some instances, can actually vote. Not that the people within them can vote, but the actual corporation themselves.
I wonder who would
vote.
cast a vote within the corporate. Is it the CEO?
That's what everybody's trying to fucking figure out.
Is it the board of directors?
These are questions that everybody's asking. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But I think what I said still stands. Like, for example, like let's say today we're like arrest Pfizer. Who? Do we arrest everyone who works for the company, or do you just arrest the executives at the top level? Do you arrest the one, or do you arrest the 10 or the 20?
I don't know what that is.
So, like, when we talk about treating, like, for example, if you treat, like, the drug dealer on the street, right? If you find that person who's like, all right, this person.
So, what you're saying is the drug dealers on the street just have to band together and create a corporation. And then in that case, you can't really arrest one of them because who's doing what?
Yeah. Like, that is, if you do
the
it.
cartels are looking at you, right? Like, Raid. I think you just solved our problem.
I'm sure most of them are probably plugged in some legal. Like, so you could arrest. Like, let's say you arrest. Let's bring it back to Power, right? Let's say you arrest Lobos, Tommy, and Ghost, and you fuck up distribution in New York City, right? That's a little bit easier than like if you arrest Pfizer. Who had Pfizer, right? Because the business is operating within the scope of the law. So like, who do you arrest?
The craziest part of what you just said is that basically a corporation can do whatever the fuck they want as long as they have plausible deniability, right? As long as they have enough people spread out. It's like, I only made this decision.
So what does that mean that we need to change, right? As much as we need to address like what's happening like within the community, within the society, you at the same time you need to also be addressing the laws and regulations that allow these companies.
Welcome to my side.
I've been saying this the whole time. What are you talking about?
Maddie, this should be illegal. What you're saying right now.
It's interesting because you're trying to make 2 points at the same time. Yeah. You're trying to say that community policing needs to be such a large thing, but at the same time, government policies need to step in. But then some of the solutions that we would have in terms of jailing the heads of these companies, you're not for.
No. I'm saying that there is no one solution. There's not one big problem, which means we cannot have one big solution. There are many problems, which mean we need solutions for each problem. So just as much as we need to address like
what solution and what problem and what solution are you addressing? Because I think that's what's murky.
Yeah. So at the top level, right, when you look at like companies like Pfizer, right, we need a change. Well, again, it's a big problem, big solution, right? You have to like address lobbying. Right? You have to like stop that shit because these pharmaceutical companies have lobbyists with deep pockets that are essentially writing their own laws. So you need to stop that shit. Mm-hmm. And then you need to look at like who your elected officials are in office and make sure that their pockets aren't being lined by the lobbyists, right? And then at that point you get the right people in representation. Hopefully at the state and the federal level, you can start to pass laws and regulations that, close these loopholes for the pharmaceutical companies that they skate through, right? Mm-hmm. At the same time, you do need local policing at the local to make sure that those like the drug dealers like in the community, whether it's like at the like neighborhood level or at the state and federal level, like we're addressing that as well.
But do you not think that that's what they're all, like? I guess that's what my argument is as well, is that we've been doing that for so long and so hard that
we've been
At what point do we admit, okay, this shit ain't working?
Yeah, we've been doing it in a way that I feel like everyone's a criminal, right? Everyone's responsible, right? We're they're arresting the drug dealers and they're arresting like the drug users, right?
I don't think so. And I'll take Baltimore as like a perfect example. I don't think that they're arresting drug users.
I mean, there are a lot of people that are incarcerated, right, for having possessed a small amount of narcotics, right, or having sold a small amount of narcotics. So I think like that. These like little motherfuckers out here selling a little bit of weed. Why are we arresting them, right? Why are we arresting the person who's using a small amount of drugs?
I think that's mostly like it, meaning that like they don't, there's not like a test to be like, all right, are you high right now? I don't think they're out testing people if they're fucking high. But what they are is catching you with whatever fucking drugs on you and say you have intent to sell or whatever the case is.
I think under a certain amount of like by gram based on the drug, like we shouldn't make arrests, right? For example, like in the state of Maryland, there was a law that passed that police can no longer use.
Wait. But again, what are you arguing for? Like, what is the thing you're because you're saying both things. You're saying, but we kind of have to get tougher on it, but also we shouldn't, if it's under a certain amount,
you should get tougher on like illegal distribution beyond a certain point, right? Like if you are not like a licensed distributor and you just have like a kilo of cocaine on you, absolutely get arrested.
What is a licensed distributor of a kilo of cocaine?
If you're like, I mean, like for example, in Canada, they just passed a law like, drugs like cocaine are illegal. So you can legit go file for licensing to be able to buy and distribute the product at your store, right?
Lit over there.
Yeah. So so anyone who's operating or selling like a large amount of narcotics, whatever large means, like, without operating like within that structure of the law, that person should still be arrested. But I don't think we should be jailing people like drug users. It doesn't make sense. You should be rehabilitating them. That's the part of our policing and our criminal system that needs to change. What do you think
decriminalization is?
So decriminalizing is one thing. Then you have to address the people that are already incarcerated, right? Do you like release them? Do you expunge their records so they can go back? Sure. I agree. Like so they can go back and be contributing members of society. Yeah. But I also think those people need rehabilitation, right? Because they've been in a system that has like manipulated them in a certain way.
I think that's the thing that I strongly want to like prevent is like when you, because I know you talk a lot about like, okay, you got to like actually deal with the problem, but what happens when the problems continue? Like when just locking people up is clearly not doing their job. So it's like you have to understand what the root issue is, and then you have to address the root issue. So if it's poverty, okay, then you have to address that in order to, and it's not going to be tomorrow that it's going to change because this is decade after decade, generation after generation. It's something that's kind of passed on as we go along in terms of, okay, well, my father is a drug dealer, so therefore I'm most likely going to be a drug dealer or whatever the case is. And it's not saying you're doomed to that, but it's saying there's a strong likelihood that you're probably going to follow in those steps if you grow in a certain environment, right? So then you have to address the underlying issues, and there's not enough paid attention to that versus let's just lock people away. It's because that's the easiest thing to do for society. If somebody robs, I'll go back to my original robbing the store idea. If somebody robs the store, the first inclination is to, oh, let's just put them behind bars because they robbed the store, right? Instead of trying to actually figure out what the fuck actually happened there.
I mean, I still think that person should be arrested, right? Because you're committing robbery. Like, we're not just going to legalize robbing people.
But again, then what are you arguing for? If the goal is to just arrest that person and put that person away, then aren't you putting them into a system that is just going to perpetuate what it is that they're doing anyways?
For example, I think the drug user is like somewhat of a victimless crime. They're hurting themselves, right? So that person does require rehabilitation. Does the person who's robbing the store need to be rehabilitated as well? Absolutely, because there's more than likely like a need or some like type of like desperation that's putting them in the mind frame to go ahead and do that thing, right? But because that is not a victimless crime, I commit a robbery, I'm hurting you, I might be hurting you or everyone in the store, whether physically, mentally, the trauma. Like there are people who've been in like bank robberies, right, where like the bank robbers came in, stole the money from the bank, and then left, and then no one in the bank was actually hurt. But it's not entirely a victimless crime because like that now the people in the bank might be living with like trauma from being involved in such like a traumatic situation where they thought they might have died, and like so it's not entirely a victimless crime. So if someone robs a store, do I think they should be arrested? Absolutely. If someone is like on heroin or something like that, I would approach that being that they're not hurting anybody. Like, all right, that person needs rehabilitation.
What if they robbed a store while they're on heroin?
Oof. Oof.
Tough choices.
Yeah. Then listen, lock your ass up, and then we'll rehabilitate you. But you're gonna do a little bit of time, and then we're gonna
So,
rehabilitate
guys,
you.
couple of things just to kind of like touch on and maybe button this up a little bit. So, I think the first thing was the crimes in Pigtown and like what kind of drugs are associated. Because you had asked like how many people would be like on crack, cocaine, whatever it was. Baltimore City Police releases their crime maps and everything and lets you know exactly what's going on. Primary crimes here are carjackings, home invasions, the next thing, and the biggest drug offense is fentanyl. Crack isn't even like really on
Baltimore?
the list. Huh?
Fentanyl in Baltimore?
Yeah. What?
Yeah, in Pigtown
You
specifically.
crazy?
Yeah, that's the biggest concern
This is
right
like
now.
the number one spot for fentanyl.
Now, to jump into like who we're locking up. Here's why I would say, Orain, we are locking up the Shacklers. We are locking up, the D'Amelios, who run Pfizer.
I thought you meant Charlie.
No, not Charlie D'Amelio. I mean, I'm sure they've done something.
TikTok dances? I know. It seemed like they did something.
No,
In order to get that famous that quickly, you had to
It's
do
Frank
something
A.
illegal, yeah.
D'Amelio,
They're
Mikhail
just stealing
Dalston.
content. That's what they're doing.
So here's
Yeah,
why,
that should be a
man.
hard time.
Here's why you are locking them up, Orain. In 2009, the largest ever penalty that was given to any pharmaceutical corporation was Pfizer, or I believe it was maybe Johnson & Johnson. No, it was Pfizer. And it was $1.19 billion.
What was their revenue for that year?
For that year alone, it was $10 billion.
So then,
So
I
it's
mean,
nothing. It's
yeah,
absolutely
they're like-
nothing.
right?
So but this is
well,
this,
and that's a fine. There's
that's
no
a fine
arrest there.
over the like last 15 years at that point of
Exactly.
them giving out prescription opioids and in the manner that they were doing it. Now, since then, nothing's changed. Last year, Tuna, you mentioned, how much money, do pharmaceutical companies make? 100 million. No, like Johnson & Johnson was surpassed by Pfizer. They made almost $100 billion. They were like at 95 billion just in revenue. So like imagine what the sales were. So if you want anything to actually change, yes, you start with policy at the highest levels. You do get rid of, lobbying power by these pharmaceutical companies. But man, Frank D'Amelio, Mikhail Dalston, the Sacklers, you start locking them up. The moment you start locking them up, things do change. The next CEOs that come into this company won't be as tempted to make as much revenue by skirting the law. You got to start locking these people up. Unless you start locking them up, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. I think
Because
that's
these people, they're not addicted to opioids. They're addicted to money and freedom.
Exactly.
And their freedom and money are tied together. If
sure.
you take all that away, that all changes.
So you would say that like the people who need to be arrested are the CEOs of the company.
100%.
Okay. I mean,
And then
I'm not
investment
against
companies
that.
like Vanguard and BlackRock, if you guys know what they're doing and you're investing in them, I'm sorry, you got to get jailed up too. Like, it
so
just
you
has to
arrest
happen.
you arrest the investors too.
100%.
I don't know if I.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
what
know
if
if
I-
I'd
One
invest
hundred
in
percent, because
investors.
they
That
all
seems
know
like
what's
a-
going on. They all get internal memos. They
So
100%.
Every investor gets
Yeah.
internal.
not
memos?
every investor, but the main ones
Okay,
who run,
my-
for example, Vanguard.
primary shareholders or
My-
majority
yeah,
No,
shareholders?
I'm talking about
Yeesh.
whoever's running Vanguard.
What
No,
if,
no.
What if I am
Because they would be lying to me.
What if I'm invested in a company, but I'm like unaware that I'm invested in that particular company because I hire an investment bank to do my investing
Well,
for
I
me,
think
and I don't know every stock.
when he says
Yeah, yeah,
investment
yeah.
is different than I think what
you're
you're
talking about like majority,
Yeah, like Mortimer
shareholders.
Buckley, like
He's talking about like
Vanguard
groups that
CEO.
go in and invest in certain companies because they have intimate knowledge of the
Correct.
company and they're like, hey, or like like
Consider it insider trading.
So wait. Is this like?
I don't know if that's insider.
It's not
I feel like
insider
that's a
trading. It's
different
not
thing
insider
altogether,
trading. I'm
yeah.
saying that's the like easiest way that I can think about it.
But then
is-
you'd
is-
have to also like the board of directors would have to be
Yeah, I think-
arrested.
I
like,
think- I
all
think
the
that might be
executives,
a-
the
some
chairman,
people- some
the
people
CEO,
I
start
think that's
going
a
to jail.
bridge.
the
I think that's
marketing director.
yeah, that's.
Arrest that bitch. Fucking
I saw your ad last
I
week.
saw your ad, you son of a bitch. I was at the gym on the treadmill. I saw your ad. You tried to sell me drugs.
I'm saying you start arresting the people who had intimate knowledge of the practices that were leading to the crisis. So the Sacklers, the family itself, they knew about it. The CEOs, the CFOs, they all knew about it.
I think the way that I can sum this up is I think you should go with what you can prove, right? And I think a lot of these situations, I don't know if you can prove what you're saying, Addy. I think I think if you are able to prove it, then okay, there might be something there.
Sure.
But unless you can prove, you can't just be like,
Yeah.
oh, you're invested in
That's
this
what we
company,
call
so
a
therefore you
slippery
gotta.
slope,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
Well,
the shit will just start sliding. Like if you arrest the CEO, then you got to arrest the board of directors, then you got to arrest the chairman,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you got to
Who-
arrest.
Yeah, the moment an email
the
comes out
CFO.
that says, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna push this regardless of what the regulations are," anybody who was on that email, you're getting arrested.
I can't be just CC'd on the email. You
Ah,
said-
you can
my
Tunde. You can Tunde. You're gonna be CC'd. People get fired in
What if
corporate
I'm in the
America just because they're
intern
getting
training
emails.
development program.
my third day.
I just got the job. Now I'm going to prison.
It's all right, man. In those 3 days, you probably made $20 million. You're okay.
trust me, I
But you think that on my third day as
Yeah,
the
Tunde,
fucking
you, at
developmental
Johnson and Johnson,
You think I'm
Tunde
making
the CEO.
$20 million?
Yes, your signing bonus
Man,
was
get
probably
the
also,
15.
also, what about the scientists and like the people who are actually
These
like,
are all
making the drugs,
really good
right?
questions, and
Right?
this is what Oppenheimer is sort of
Yeah.
the philosophical questions that it kept begging is just like what responsibility does then Oppenheimer have of creating or helping to facilitate the creation of this atom bomb. And I don't know. I don't think that there's an easy.
Yeah, if they were arrest fucking Oppenheimer, because like, hey, listen, you maybe.
Oh my God, now we're coming full circle
You did
here.
a bad thing intentionally or unintentionally, but like you.
Okay,
present
so what-
a clear and present danger,
Right,
as Harrison Ford would
so-
say.
But he warned him
we
to
need to take
no,
you
no,
off the
power.
streets.
That's after the fact. But as he's making it, though, what is the context for him making it? Meaning that this was during World War II, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, something that I didn't know that was. Do you guys care if I tell you anything? Like this is obviously it's history.
No, I know a lot about the story, so go ahead.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
it's-
so
I'm
I didn't
sure
know,
I know it somewhere.
and this might be I might be really stupid for not knowing this. I didn't know that Hitler committed suicide before the war was over.
Yeah,
Correct.
did he do the cyanide pill or something?
No,
like
no,
that?
he shot himself.
No, he shot
shot
himself in a
himself?
bunker.
Yeah.
Oh, coward.
I didn't. Fair enough, but I didn't know that was before the war was over. I thought it was always like, oh, the war is over, I want to kill myself. So that makes the U.S. dropping the bomb on Japan that much more I don't know why I find that fact to be insanity. That like, okay, Japan was still pretty, at least according to this movie, was still going pretty hard. In terms of like, they're like, yeah, we're not submitting. Like, okay, he killed himself, so what? We're still proceeding ahead. But I feel like your main threat in that case or situation is gone, and it's probably going to be a matter of time before Japan therefore follows. And you're willing to drop not just one, two nukes on
Yeah,
them?
you know why? I think part of the reason why I think Hitler killed himself, and this is like just in like shit that I've heard over time, like theories, blah blah blah, is because if he were to be arrested, right? If he were to be taken into custody, put on trial, that would have weakened his idea more so than him killing himself, because he never saw the light. He never went to jail, right? He never got arrested, and he never got to, there was never a chance for anyone to watch Hitler's like idea, his thing, be like destroyed bit by bit while he was still alive, right? He killed himself. His idea lives on. No, he never saw the light of. He never saw a day in court. But his ideas, his ideology, his Mein Kampf, his writing, his letters, all that stuff lived on still.
Well,
so it's harder to destroy a man's idea when that man is dead than it is to destroy it while he's alive in court.
Right, but I guess that leads me to the question I'm still asking, which is, who then, like, during that time, if you're Oppenheimer and you're like, and they're telling you like, yo, we need something to end this war. Like, now again, taking the fact of what I just said out of it for a second, in terms of just like, that's kind of crazy that Hitler is dead and you're like, we're still going to drop this bomb. But okay, fair enough. Apparently the Japanese were still going pretty hard at that point in time. So you have a choice if you're Oppenheimer. Either we can let this war rage on, which in case they're not going to surrender and we're not going to stop. So either they're going to take over us or we're going to take over them. One of the two is going to happen, right? If you're Oppenheimer, well, what do? Do you create something and yeah, there's a lot to the atom bomb that's like was crazy in terms of what it could have done versus, I mean, it's still insanity what it did, what it does, but there was anyways, I'm not.
So if you're
watching the movie.
Oppenheimer and you've
Yeah.
essentially
What is it-
been,
what do you do?
You've essentially been ordered
and
to
then
create.
why would you take that? Considering the circumstance, then how do you then arrest that person then?
So Oppenheimer was ordered to create a bomb that would essentially end the war, right? Like
Effectively,
so
yeah.
I think as he's doing this, right?
As Germany, as he's understanding that Germany's on
Yeah.
their way to making this bomb as well.
Yeah. So, I think it's like not necessarily just a moral thing, right? But it's also like, what this is going to be used for. This bomb is not going to be used to just kill the people that are fighting against you, but more than likely it's going to be dropped on that country as just like, hey, I'm sending a global message here, right? And that just like what happened at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right?
Hiroshima
And Nagasaki. Fuck, I fucked both of those up. I was close.
Yeah. You tried.
We saw that like there were unintended consequences, like thousands and thousands of people who were killed, and they had absolutely nothing to do with the war. They were just innocent bystanders, casualties of war, right? So if I'm someone and I'm creating like, hey, this thing is going to kill 20,000 people, and I'm doing it under orders, at what point do you bear a certain level of,
But this is kind of like the trolley problem, and it's interesting. Again, it's really interesting in the context what direction you go, because of the trolley problem. You said you would hit the lever and kill the one person, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is
Oh,
essentially.
wait.
Like
Yeah,
if you have five people,
when we had that
it was
conversation,
already on
yeah.
the way. If you don't do anything, it's going to kill the 5 people. If you hit the lever, it's going to go on a different track and kill one person. And you said you'd kill the one person, right?
Yep.
This is essentially the same situation where the conventional wisdom is that if Japan doesn't surrender, which there is nothing telling us that they're going to surrender. Now, again, this is all, I guess, according to U.S. intelligence. So that's already on shaky ground.
Probably mostly lies.
Yeah. But fair enough. Let's say that that's true, that they're just simply not going to surrender, that they're going to proceed as is, right? Meaning that a lot more people are going to die if the war continues than if you drop these 2 bombs, right? And I'm not advocating for one side or another, but it's interesting to hear what you're saying, because in the trolley situation, you're saying, no, I'd hit the lever to kill the one person, which is essentially what Oppenheimer did. But
Yeah.
you're saying that
These are similar situations, but not exactly, right? Which is why it's easier to make a decision in one instance and not in the other instance. Because you're right, like similar problem, but on a much bigger scale. So, like the train the analogy we use in a train is like you're for anyone who didn't listen to that last episode, you're on a train track, you're on a runaway train, and the train, if you go straight, it's going to run into a car filled with 5 people in it, and you're going to kill all those people. If you pull the lever, it'll switch tracks and go on a different track and hit a car with 1 person in it, right?
there's no cars in this situation, but fair enough.
People,
Same thing.
People just happen to be on the track.
They're tied up on the tracks.
They're tied up. They can't move. Right. In that situation, I can see the immediate result of my decisions. Right. 1 person or 5 people. In the situation where you're building a bomb, like you can't see the immediate result. Maybe the war will end before the bomb is ever used. Ideal situation. Great.
No, but what do you do in real time though? Meaning that if that trolley's coming at you, right? Should I pull the lever or shouldn't I pull the lever? That's effectively what happened to Oppenheimer. Do I create this bomb and thus essentially ending the war, or do I just I don't know if I can create this bomb and don't create the bomb, and then what if more people die as a result of you not hitting that lever?
Yeah, I think you create the bomb, and you're creating the bomb knowing that hey, this one thing could kill 20,000 people, and you bear some of that responsibility. If you don't create the bomb, and let's say the other country drops a bomb on your country, and 20,000 people die, is it your fault that you didn't kill those 20,000 people sooner and end the war? I don't think you could put that blame on one person, but I think you can say that, hey, you built that bomb.
But if you have the capacity to though. And that's what I'm saying. He
the government
clearly had the capacity to, because he did the thing,
Yeah.
right? He created the bomb.
That's a tough situation.
Or
and
he didn't do it himself, but he was.
That's a tough situation. You're right, and I don't know if there's a clear answer to it. I'm not going to pretend like I have a definitive answer.
Okay, but this goes back to what do you do with him afterwards? I don't think you throw him in jail.
So what would you do?
I wouldn't throw him in jail.
What would you do? That's what you
Nothing.
wouldn't do.
What am I going to do with him?
You would do nothing.
What am I going? Literally, what am I going to do with him? Am I going to throw him in jail?
He just goes home that day and sleeps in his own bed. He just.
That's literally what he did. Yeah.
That's fucking.
Wait, how's that crazy?
Well, for Oppenheimer.
Yeah. Who are we talking about? What are you talking about?
Was there ever I don't know if they highlighted this in the movie. Was there ever any consequences?
No.
No.
What do you? No. But more importantly, why should there have been? Okay, if you said that the U.S. president who okayed the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like if you said the U.S. president has to be held up as a war, as a what do they call it? A
war criminal.
War criminal. Okay, I think I can kind of understand that and see that, right? In that, like, they literally okayed it. Like they had the command coming from him, and this is why I'm saying that, like, you know, yeah, I think it might be that kind of easy. Maybe we need to get somebody in here who specializes in fucking, you know, what happens, you know, if the president wants to call a nuclear strike. But the president gave the okay to drop the fucking bombs. If you said ultimately he's the commander in chief, so he had to okay that, the command comes from him. If you said you're sending him to jail, I'd be like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But it's like, okay, you know, and they use this a lot in the movie. The idea of, and I think the book that this is based off of, which is called American Prometheus. So like Prometheus, right? Prometheus was, you know, and I guess it was a Greek philosophy, was the god who gave fire to humans, and, you know, goes like, okay, well, you gave fire to humans, but you gave them the tool to help them destroy themselves, right? So then do you fucking jail Prometheus for giving us fire, even though we're the ones who did the thing with it? Like, how do you jail Prometheus in that case? In this case, how do you jail Oppenheimer for simply creating the bomb when it wasn't him that dropped it? In fact, he, towards the end of creating it, was like, guys, I don't think we should do this, right? This seems kind of crazy. But he's already created at that point, and they're like, it's going to happen with you or without you, one way or another. And then he also, additionally, was against the H-bomb, because that was an atom bomb that was dropped on Japan. But the H-bomb, which is a hydrogen bomb, was an even more powerful bomb that he was like, guys, no, we shouldn't do this at all. Yeah. And he was discredited because of it, you know? And so it's like, okay, well then do you take the people who created, like the people who created?
I just think having zero consequences
but
for anyone.
Why should he have to, why? I still don't understand.
Because there's a certain level of accountability and responsibility in the things that we do, even if we do them under orders.
Period.
I think, yes, absolutely. I think that is how you
That's
prevent.
crazy.
I think that's how you prevent scientists from.
That's
like,
how you
doing and creating things that, like, hey, you know, for example, like scientists who like create viruses that, like, hey, if this thing ever gets released, you know, a million people are going to die.
Viruses?
So that you understand it, and ultimately you find out how to,
you
like,
can get ahead of it.
Yeah. So again, it is, you know, it's a weavy web, right? That's like a 3-year callback. Yeah, it's one of those things where I understand that, like, certain people are doing things for the nature of science. Hey, like, we want to study and understand, and hopefully our understanding will lead to preventing the thing altogether. Or like in the case of a virus, right? If this virus ever happens, right, we have studied it long enough to know how to cure it, right?
I mean, now there's a strong idea that COVID came from a lab, so fair enough.
Yeah.
But we also there was developments that assisted in how we got the vaccines, right? The reason why I was able to work, you know, that we were able to get it so quickly was because
studying the virus allowed us to understand the vaccine.
At least a part of it. But
so it's like causality, right? Like, one thing happens, it causes another thing to happen, which may cause another thing to happen, even though the original thing that happened might have been done unintentionally or knowingly, but you didn't know, like, what consequences would come down the road for it. So in the Oppenheimer situation, he was told, hey, you got to build a bomb that's going to end the war. He built the bomb. To your point, towards the end, he was maybe like, hey guys, I don't think this is really a good idea. We shouldn't do this. Ultimately, the bomb was built. History is, you know, history as we know it. I do not believe, though, that if you create a system in which, you know, if someone does something under orders, or if I just do it for the sake of science or whatever, right? Or if I did it and I didn't know that thing would happen, but it did ultimately happen, I worry about a society in which we just let that person go.
Yeah, and I worry about the society where all of these things are penalized, and then people become afraid to discover shit because they don't like how, like, so he his study of science at that point in time was quantum mechanics, right? And so I don't know if there's really any way that he would have known that his interest in that particular sector in science would have put him in this position eventually. Like, but it did, right? So then is he just not supposed to study quantum mechanics then in that case? You know what I mean? Like, are we not supposed to, like, look for, like, black holes and shit because we're worried what people might do with it on the back end? Like, all these.
See, why the fuck are we looking for black holes? What are we going to do? What's the point?
It's like asking why people created, like, why are we interested in, like, creating computers? Like, what are you going to do with the computer?
Why would we not be studying black holes?
Yeah, like,
eventually it will consume everything. There's like
And then what are we going to do about it?
There's a bunch in our own galaxy.
That's what we're trying to figure out is what do we do about it? That's the question.
There are certain things where it's like nothing you can do about it.
you
For
have such
example,
a weird
hurricanes, right?
outlook on
Hurricanes. Hurricanes. I love the people studying the weather. Like, I think it's important to study it, right? But there are things that are beyond our control.
Why shouldn't you study
No, I'm saying study a hurricane. Study it, understand it, know how to like detect it when it's going to happen, blah, blah, and how it impacts wind change, right? Which has ultimately impacted how like buildings are built, right? Like they're built on like what is it called? What is the swaying mechanism that a lot of buildings have that allow the building to move and sway with like harsh wind?
Fuck am I know? I don't know.
No, okay.
Hydraulics.
Might be like a hydraulic.
Let's call
like,
it a sway mechanism.
Sway mechanism, right? So like the studying of wind and hurricanes and natural disasters, earthquakes have improved how we build buildings today, so they're more stable and sustainable. Blah blah blah. It makes sense. I just think there are things like we can study hurricanes. What you're not really going to do is stop it. Because that is beyond
cross braces.
Cross braces.
Shear walls, cross braces.
Whatever you tell me, that sounds about right. As long as you found it on the little box, on the little square that's connected to the internet.
Yeah, that's like saying like people shouldn't have like when they were trying to when they discovered Viagra, right? Like they were looking for something that like I think they were
supposed to increase blood flow or something.
Yeah, they're supposed to like work on some sort of like heart shit or I don't know. I forget exactly what the story goes. But all I'm trying to say is that like you then put this fear in people like, oh, you can't study XYZ thing. It's like as long as you have regulations, meaning that as long as it's within certain parameters of like, look, if you're going to do this, this is all the things that you would need in order to study this particular thing. If you're going to work with viruses, okay, this is what your lab has to fucking look like, right? Yeah. As long as it's just not like, yeah, I'm in my fucking basement, like fucking, I'm trying to do this like fucking Walter White or some shit, like, okay, like if it's not that situation and we can reasonably, like, as long as we have the parameters in place, it's like, well, why couldn't you? You know, like, and why do you then have to pay a penalty? Like, if you are negligent, okay.
To the point that we made earlier, right? Yeah. The CEOs of these like major medical companies, right? Sure. I think what we see a lot is like, let's say a CEO, he's in office for a while, does some fuck shit, he like retires, and then he can like that person can no longer be tried for crimes committed while they were in the position. Because if I'm not doing the job anymore, I quit 3 months ago, and then you find out after I've left the job that I may have done something. I'm like, oh, I didn't know, but I quit. It's not my job anymore. Yeah, I escape a good bit of persecution, right? Yeah, I think in a perfect world, if I had to say, I do think that anyone, like, whether it's like the scientist Oppenheimer who created the bomb or a president or a senator sitting in office, I think that person should be held responsible not just for what they did while they're in the seat or the position they're in, but that person can be held accountable for what they did long after the fact. So if the president sitting in office committed crimes while in office, in 5 years later, the public finds out that, oh shit, the president did these crimes. The laws today say that you can't try that president.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are arguing that shouldn't be the case. Sure.
I think the same thing should go for people who work in like public health, science, like any type of discipline in which there could be I'm still not understanding fully what you're saying. Like so I'll sum it up. Okay. A scientist who's working on fucking like nuclear weapons, right? Or taking case like Oppenheimer, right? I think, but let's bring Oppenheimer into 2023. You're working on something, you should be allowed to study and understand and explore your curiosity, like with regulations and controls, right? But what if you told them that, hey, you will be held responsible for what you've created today, tomorrow? But again, I think that's going to change the nature of how they go about doing their work.
I don't think that's going to deter anybody from doing their work. I think, and also, how do you police that? Like, so for instance, Oppenheimer, he made the bomb, but he didn't drop the bomb, right? Like, it's different if you are the person giving the okay to like drop the bomb. It's different if you're the person who makes the bomb, right? It's like the difference of
Walter White made he made this. What were they making? What were they cooking again?
Meth.
But didn't have a name for it.
Yeah. No, just
what was their meth. Shit called? It was just meth. No,
I mean it was blue, but I don't think they called it anything different.
I thought they had a name for it. For whatever they were cooking. Like they had like their own unique product. Gus Fring had like, it wasn't Blue Magic. We know that, right? But I thought they had a name for it in Breaking Bad.
Blue Sky.
I don't think
that's what it was, right. Wasn't it?
Wasn't that the company that Walter had founded with the other guy and then he like sold it for like no money and the other guy went on to become a millionaire?
No, I could have sworn it was called Blue Meth.
No, I think that's what we typed into. Yeah, I don't think I ever heard that in the series. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I just watched it recently too.
Yeah,
and I don't know
I
if
could be
ever
wrong,
heard
but
it.
like for
Yeah.
example, Walter White, right?
I mean, his name was Heisenberg, but
yeah,
which now I'm just understanding that.
Walter White. What? That his name was Heisenberg?
No, not that his name, but like where it's a scientist that is Heisenberg, and I knew that scientist, but because I watched
Heisenberg. Wasn't Heisenberg a real person?
Yeah,
like a real chemist, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Or I don't know if he was a chemist. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Make
Anyway,
your point.
so Walter White, we could say the same thing about Walter White. Like, oh, he just cooked it, right? He just made it. He didn't actually sell it to anyone. So does he bear a responsibility? I think so.
Bear responsibility for what? Addiction?
For like creating a thing that would go out and like ultimately.
I'm gonna make this last.
This is so
point.
confusing.
Yeah.
Right?
So
how is this confusing?
No. Okay. Let me explain.
Does Walter White bear
Let me
responsibility?
explain why it's confusing. Because before, when I was bringing up the pharmaceutical companies, there was none of this talk about like, oh, well, they made the thing, so therefore they have to pay the penalty, right? If people become addicted to the thing. That's why I was.
That was the whole conversation. Who would bear responsibility at the company? The CEO, the CFO, the marketing director, the board of directors, the executives. That's the question. Who, right? In this case, Walter White is the who. So if he is cooking the drugs that's ultimately being sold on the street, does he bear responsibility? I think
surely
yes.
you can. Surely you can be reasonable, and because I'm willing to be reasonable with your point, right? Surely you can be reasonable and say that just because a corporation is a corporation doesn't mean that they can do the same shit an individual does and be like, it's okay when the corporation do it because who knows? Who do we arrest?
When I talk about the corporation, my point is you are not going to arrest or hold the corporation accountable. There are people, there are bad actors within the organization.
No, the corporation's model is making this drug. What are you talking about?
So, but again, who works for corporation? People do, right? So within that corporation, who are the people that you would go after or arrest? Would it be the scientists who are actually like formulating the drug? Would it be like the CEO? Like who would be responsible? The who matters.
Okay,
you can't just say arrest Pfizer.
No,
who at Pfizer?
Fair enough. But are you saying that they shouldn't be arrested, or are you saying they should be?
No, I'm saying they should be.
What matters
I
is
the who.
What you're saying.
People talk about companies as if it's like a person. Like, oh, arrest Pfizer. I mean, you could literally just go arrest Pfizer.
I'm still not understanding like what your point is with that point. Like, but we can just
the point is bearing responsibility, right? Whether it's Heisenberg who's cooking the drugs, he's not selling it.
And then on top of that, are you saying that people aren't going to then get high? Like, so people get high off of like, paint. Like, are we going to start arresting fucking paint makers now? Like, because people are getting high off their fucking shit?
Yeah.
People are going to get high. Like, it's a fact of life. Like,
for sure. People are going to do drugs one way or another, right? And I think the best you can do is regulate and do your best. You're not going to stop people from doing drugs. That's never going to happen. But
yeah, so then why are you just plainly blanketly arresting people who?
No, I'm not like Addy. I'm not arresting people. You bought 2 shares on Robinhood. Like, fucking put your hands behind your back. I'm not saying that. I'm just like,
I think I understand.
Pfizer, I think those people should be arrested, but I do think it matters who.
Okay, CEO, sure.
So
let's just say the CEO.
Can we like bring it back a
CEO
little
or
bit?
the COO or the CTO?
CEO. Let's just say the CEO.
Okay. What happens to the CFO?
Okay, good question. You tell me. I'm saying the CEO, right?
You were on that email chain as the CFO.
I think anyone with a chief title,
blind CC'd.
If I'm arresting Pfizer, let's say I'm going in tomorrow and I'm like arresting motherfuckers. So I think anyone on the board of directors with a C-level title, high-ranking executives, or just like high-ranking consultants within the company. You know what I mean? Like Warren Buffett might not be.
Wait. So that means like by your account, right now they should be arrested.
If it were up to me, I'm probably going to do sweeping arrests, and then we'll find out who's who and who did what.
What is that again? Like I don't. We're
trying to send shockwaves of fear,
but okay
through like the masses, and hopefully that'll lead to some course correction.
Fair enough, but the underlying thing that you're trying to solve, the problem is that people are getting high, right? Uncontrollably. That's the problem.
That problem will be dealt. The result of that is going to take time, right? Like that's with rehabilitation, state funding for those programs.
You're addressing a problem with the incorrect solution, is what I'm saying. Meaning that if you arrest all the people at Pfizer, okay, either somebody else is going to start fucking making drugs, or the people are going to find something else to get high on.
We're not trying to solve that problem right now.
That is why are you putting them in jail then?
You know what? So again, like what I said at the beginning, many problems, many solutions.
Wait, why are you putting them to jail if it's not about the people who are
Because those
the fucked up
people-
thing that happens to people's lives because they're
to
getting high?
the point that we're all making is like those people do need to be held with like a certain level of accountability, right?
For accountability for what?
For like operating a company that is knowingly like linked or responsible for taking part in the opioid crisis. And doing so,
Yeah, but the underlying thing that you're trying to solve is that people are getting. Am I like not making sense when I say that?
So I think you're looking at me addressing one problem as like this problem should address all problems.
No, that's
not the case.
No, that's if you're arresting the people at Pfizer or whoever the street level drug dealer. What are you arresting them for? If not for the moral dilemma that is people getting too high on whatever the thing is.
I would be arresting them for knowingly taking part in producing a drug that has led to a massive
For people getting
opioid
high,
crisis,
like let's say it plainly.
Yeah, but
like
no. So again, I think you're trying to take my solution, one solution to one problem, and apply it like that one solution to that one problem
What is
should
the
address
problem?
all these problems.
What is that? You said the problem that your solution is fixing is the opioid crisis.
No. No, it is not going to fix. Arresting
so
the
lost.
CEO of Pfizer is not going to fix the opioid crisis. It
So what are you arresting them for?
We're arresting them for their knowingly contributing to the opioid crisis in order to turn a profit for their company.
Okay, whether it solves the entire opioid crisis or not, the reason why you're arresting them is because of people getting high on this drug.
People getting high, it's their own choice. Like a drug user, for the most part, choose
Be reasonable.
Tunde.
Be reasonable.
What are you not listening to?
Holy shit.
Addy, are you-
Be the impartial.
So, guys, I kind of want to bring it back to Oppenheimer because we're straying a little.
I did. Let me know when I did.
Let's just bring it back a little bit to Oppenheimer because we're talking about like shared responsibility and who would go to jail. So if we're looking throughout the history, like the very first nuclear physicist to create a nuclear reactor, I believe he was Italian, Enrico Fermi. Like obviously you are not going to jail that guy for creating a nuclear reactor studying physics, all right? Now, if we take what's going on during that period, in Oppenheimer, so we are looking at Imperial Japan. Imperial Japan, height of it, early 40s. Pearl Harbor attack in 41. Major event. 4 years later, we are looking to drop a bomb. Historians, both on the U.S. side and on the Asian side, have all confirmed that President Truman and all of his advisors knew that in August, Japan was already going to surrender. So they already knew that Japan was going to surrender before the little boy bomb was dropped. The little boy bomb still gets dropped. The news instantly goes everywhere on the 9th. 3 days,
Big Boy?
3 days later, we drop another bomb.
I thought that was the big boy that got dropped first, and then the little boy was.
No, I think it was the little boy who was dropped first, and then the big boy was. Or I might have it mixed
Yeah,
up. Sorry.
exactly.
Either way, the first one was dropped. News spreads everywhere in Japan. They knew instantly. We still decide, even though we knew before the first one was even dropped, that they were going to surrender. We drop it. Truman, all of his advisors, anybody who knew of their potential surrender that was coming, you are all going to jail if you ask me. You are all responsible at that point, not Oppenheimer.
I think, but I think that's. Did I not say this? Or
Yes,
I,
you did.
I,
You
yeah,
did,
I didn't.
yes.
I didn't say everybody who might have known about it, but Truman specifically.
Specifically, yes, and all
Who
of his
gave the okay?
advisors, 100%.
You know why Truman was able to escape?
Because he's
The president, right?
Yeah.
You cannot try the president
a big
for
boy
crimes
club.
committed while in office. One of the things I said, like I wish
I don't think that's an actual thing.
a
I
sitting
think
president.
Trump's trying to test that theory, or tried to test that
A
theory.
sitting president cannot be convicted for crimes committed while in office. He can be.
What isn't?
For example, so why who was it? Like Richard Nixon, a sitting president, you essentially can't. I think that is that's the gist of the law. I don't know the exact law.
He was pardoned. That's the only reason why Nixon didn't go to jail or anything.
Yeah. For example, President Trump, right? He was never. So he was.
He was impeached.
He was impeached twice.
Yeah.
Right. But being impeached doesn't mean you have to vacate the office of the president.
No. Being impeached just means, hey, are we going to explore these charges?
Yeah, but there's a reason why the state's attorney, for example, the state's attorney in the District of New York, Georgia, Arizona, all these people that are trying him now they're bringing these cases to court because he's no longer a sitting president, which means they can pursue him as...
Lorraine is correct. The Justice Department has ruled that you cannot prosecute a sitting president. However, you can investigate, which leads to impeachment.
Yeah. Now...
Oh, so is what comes after if you're found guilty in impeachment is that you're removed from office?
Correct.
Is that the,
If the
Well,
vote
same
after the
difference.
impeachment,
Technicalities.
you're
the
removed.
removal
Technicalities.
from office is different than an impeachment. You could be impeached but not removed from office.
Yeah, but these are technicalities. We're just talking about technicalities in that case, meaning that...
Well, I wasn't talking about while he's in. I'm talking about like what the charges that are now being that he's now being charged with.
You're talking about Trump in this situation?
Trump, yeah.
Okay.
Most of the investigators who were like investigating him for crimes while he was in office waited until he left office to actually bring forth these
I don't know
charges.
if they waited. I think it's you have to develop because there's a reason why it's like
They
two
waited.
years late.
They waited. So you're not going to present these.
Then why they wait 2 years?
You can begin an investigation, but you're not actually going to bring formal charges against the sitting
what I'm
president
saying
because
is-
you can't. What you do is you wait till he leaves office, right? Transitions office, and now you can actually bring forth charges.
like okay, so for instance, let's talk about the crimes that he's actually being or some of the things that he's being charged with now, right? They're all things that happened basically like on his way out of the office. Like, so for instance, the January 6th shit that's about to drop, that's basically on his way out of the office.
Well, some of his financial crimes date back to predate him.
No,
being
that he's being
in
charged with
office.
currently.
No, he's being charged with a lot of financial crimes that
What
are
financial crimes is he
predate.
being charged with?
For example, tax evasion,
No, that
false claims on his.
No, the thing that he's actually literally being charged with right now is the Stormy Daniels shit, which was a part of. Oh, actually, that was 2016.
That was before his presidency.
That was before his presidency.
But he can be charged now for it, even though it predates his presidency. He just couldn't be charged while he was in office.
Fair enough. What I'm saying is it's a formality, meaning that whether you're impeached and removed from office and then charged, or whatever the case is, it's still the same shit. It's not as if you could, like, if President Trump could literally murder somebody on national TV and be like, well, that was weird, and then everybody moves about their day. Like, I don't think that's a thing. Like, even though he said that was a thing. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I think that we're kind of talking about the same thing, just in different ways.
Each other a little bit.
Yeah. My point is, sitting president can be charged. So if I'm a prosecutor and like let's say he was president from 2020 to 2024, right? Or 2016 to 2020, I'm not going to. If I have charges, like, hey, I know you committed a crime, the best thing for me to do is wait until you leave office, and then I can try you.
My question is, why do you think presidents are impeached then? Like, they're impeached because there's a belief that they committed a crime, and the reason why they're being impeached is so that they can then be removed from office and then charged with a crime.
Sure, I think most people misunderstand impeachment. Most people think, "Oh, president's impeached."
I'm not. I'm fully clear on what that means.
So again, like, let's say he's impeached, cool. Then you actually have to get him out of office, and he doesn't have to leave office.
That's the result of the impeachment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, let's say I'm a state's prosecutor from New York, right? And like, I'm not trying to get him impeached. I'm trying to get him charged and go to jail for crimes committed before his presidency or maybe even shortly after. I'm going to wait until you leave office because I'm not here for an impeachment. I'm here for criminal charges.
Also, this has nothing to do with what we originally.
I don't know how we got here,
Yeah,
but very clear. But like, again, I think my point is that, like, for example, U.S. president. They can commit crimes while they're in office, right? As president, we saw who's the fucking Reagan. Reagan did it.
With what?
Drugs, right? Reagan was working with not the Cubans. I think the Nicaraguans or the Colombians, and Reagan essentially made a deal with like the cartel. I'm going to say the Cali cartel or whatever, and essentially allowed drugs to be shipped into the U.S. through like the ports in L.A. In order to essentially help fund like a war that they were fighting in South America, right? So it's like, you help us, we help you. We'll let you bring drugs in the country to operate your criminal business. You'll help us, fight these guerrilla groups in South America or whatever through like arms dealing, right? And there's been many movies about it. There was a whole 700-page document that was released, but that news broke during the same time as the Rodney King beatings and like the LA riots, right? So it kind of got swept under the rug. Now, because Reagan did that while he was in office, when he left the office, even though he was literally a part of bringing drugs into the United States and committed federal crimes, he couldn't be brought up because he left office. Right now, my thing is, I think he should still be able to. He should be held accountable for crimes committed while he was in office, even though he's left. Just like I think a scientist, Oppenheimer should, and the people who worked on the whole Manhattan Project should be held accountable for crimes they committed even years after.
So again, I don't know if this has much weight because so for using Trump as the example, they're about to bring charges against him for the January 6th shit, and that was before he left the office that happened, and he's out of office now. So it's not as if they're charging him for something after the fact, that they're charging him, or they're going to be charging. I don't know what the specifics are since that hasn't even come out yet.
It's actually a different charge. I think at first they tried to. Well, I think they begun the investigation, but they didn't actually try him for inciting a riot while he was in office.
It's not about inciting.
But he was still in office. Yeah.
No, it's not about any of that. It's about the fake electors. That he basically made like a whole bunch of phone calls and shit and was like, yo, we need find me the fucking votes. Like it's unless I'm wrong, I could be wrong.
So he's being tried for that in Georgia and Arizona, I believe, in the state of New York as well, by like 3 different prosecuting attorneys. So those like 3 separate charges, and within those charges, he might have like 10 different charges for those things.
My main point to all this is, why would you charge? My main point is, I don't of all the things I could do.
Bro, he's responsible somehow. We gotta get him the fuck out of here. Even if it's just to make an example out of him. But don't do this type of shit again.
But do you understand? Like, it's like saying, like, whoever created guns, it's like, we need to charge them for the shit, or and this is actually a really good question, right? If somebody sells legally sells a gun to somebody, and then they go fucking murder somebody, who the fuck are we gonna charge the gun, even though it was a legal sale?
That's a tough one, right? Because I do think that person who sold, for example, the kid, who's that fucking kid who shot up that fat fuck. Who went to that state and shot out those people? The President Trump was like, "Oh, if he gets arrested, I'm going to pardon him."
Oh, the
little fat kid,
Rittenhouse.
Yeah, fuck that kid,
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah, fuck him. Say it again.
Yeah, fair enough.
So the person who sold him, because he was like 16 or something like that when he bought the gun.
I'm pretty sure it was like a legal purchase though.
It was a legal purchase, right? But at the same time, it's like legal.
So then why would you arrest him? I'm so confused.
I think the legality of it is kind of interesting. Like, how is it legal, right? And
but do you see how this flies directly in the face of when you were saying that when corporations do shit because it's legal, then that makes it fine, and then when
So when I'm not saying that the store owner should be arrested, because if they did it legally, then he legally didn't commit a crime. I think there's maybe like a moral
how would he know?
Or, true, very true.
Like, I don't like that's the part of it that I don't understand.
Yeah,
if
this
he
is
legally
the
sold
slope.
it to him, well, slippery slope of what?
Because like he did, so the gun store owner, he did nothing wrong. He sold a weapon to someone legally, right? And that person then went on to use that weapon to commit a crime. I mean, you could sell me a screwdriver at fucking Ace Hardware store, and then you go home and stab your wife with it. Like, how was I supposed to know that?
Your wife? It couldn't be just a stranger you just met on the street.
Well, hopefully it's not the kids.
Why does it gotta be any of them? It could be that dude over there.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems heinous.
It all seems heinous. I feel like.
Also, just one correction: it was Kyle Rittenhouse's friend Dominic Black who purchased him the gun. And he also faced no charges.
Yeah, these motherfuckers gotta go to jail. I don't know.
No, but was it legal or illegal?
I thought the gun was purchased legally.
Yeah, I thought he purchased it. I might be wrong about that.
No, Rittenhouse definitely didn't purchase the gun. It was definitely Dominic Black, and he was held up, on the stand in court.
Wait, but was that purchase legal or illegal?
I'm looking through it now.
But either way, what I'm saying is, there's only so much you can do about the person. Like, what I'm saying is the reason why I don't think that Oppenheimer should have seen any charges, or why it's not the most preposterous thing ever that he didn't, is because it's like, well, he made this shit. Like, it's not as if he didn't tell the fucking government, hey, drop that bomb. And according to what Addy says, again, there's one thing that's abundantly clear from this movie is I need to brush the fuck up on my history, because I don't know any of this shit. I don't know. And it's super fucking interesting too.
Yeah.
Because all the shit, like we look at it as like distant past, but in reality, it's like there's going to be a movie made 20 years from now about the shit that's happening today. So it's like, if we don't understand history, then we're basically just doomed, as the old saying goes, we're just doomed to repeat it. I just personally, I don't think that, and we can, either segue from here or just end the combo altogether. I know you got a thing you got to get to.
Yeah, I completely lost track of
It
time.
was purchased legally. He was 18 at the time, Dominic Black.
Yeah. So again, the store owner did nothing wrong, right? The person who sold him the guns did nothing wrong technically, right? I think at that point, right, then it becomes like a state federal issue. Like how are these people purchasing these like assault rifles legally?
Welcome to gun
within
reform,
your
yeah.
right, yeah. So that's a gun reform question, right? But then it's also, I think. And it's hard to account for like moral responsibility, right? Like who is to say what you should do morally and like,
and according
right?
to whose morals?
Exactly, right? So for the gun store owner, it's like, I sold that kid that weapon. That weapon was then used to commit like a mass murder, mass shooting. Like, does that person bear consequences? It's tough. Like, I think this Oppenheimer situation is tough as well. Like, did Oppenheimer commit a crime?
I don't think it's. I don't. If you want to say that morally, that he has blood on his hands, that's a really fucking fair argument.
Yeah, I think so.
That's really fair.
But did he commit an actual crime? I don't know, but I think everyone who's a part of this Manhattan Project,
exactly, like
they've all got to go because they've collectively done some shit that was like that led to a lot of people dying, and we can't have you guys repeat this shit. Not even one of you.
But what if something happens but you're under a false understanding, meaning that they're thinking, and Addy again added that that the U.S. knew that Japan was going to surrender, that their surrender was imminent. But what if they tell you, no, like this shit's going to rage on and a lot of people are going to fucking die unless like you tell me either you do this shit or a lot of people are going to die and all that blood is then on your hands as well, right? So you can either, again, the trolley situation where you can either have the one person, blood on your hands or you can have 5 people. Your choice, especially that you can create the shit that can stop it, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're under that understanding, then how then are you then going to be charged with shit when it's like, I didn't know that they were going to surrender, right? I was going off of what the fuck I was told, right?
But then there's also the question of what is it called? Where you're doing something and the thing that you're doing is probably wrong, but you do so under like unknowing pretenses where it's like, hey, I didn't know that what I was doing was wrong or would like lead to this thing.
I think what you're trying to get at is plausible deniability. But
so plausible deniability is like, I actually didn't know, right? Whereas, I didn't know, I didn't have all the information. I did a small part of this thing. I didn't know this small thing I did was a part of this big thing, right?
That's still, yeah.
What if you're knowingly doing something like, hey, like I'm creating a bomb here, right? I didn't know what they were going to use it for.
That's still plausible deniability.
I don't think it's plausible at this point. I think it's like
if
knowingly
you didn't know what they were going to do with it.
But you knew you were building a bomb, and what do people do with bombs? Like you can't play completely dumb here.
No, but I think maybe your misunderstanding of like what
if you're cooking fentanyl, right, in the basement, you can't be like, hey, I didn't know what they were going to do with it. I didn't know people were going to overdose on this drug, like this drug that like people have clearly been overdosing on, and you're cooking it, and maybe you didn't see them bagging it up over there for individual sales. Maybe you just cooked it and left, but.
Yeah,
you also did something that was going to be used.
I'm not sure if that's a direct
for negative purposes. Yeah, not a direct correlation, but like if Heisenberg cooking this stuff, he knew he didn't.
You're talking about Breaking Bad or
Breaking Bad. He knew what he was doing, right? But he wasn't hand-to-hand drug distribution, but he knew.
What do you mean? As in the fact that he was making drugs?
He knew that these drugs were being cooked for sale and distribution. If I cook fentanyl, it's being
I think
cooked
all
for sale.
drug
If I build a bomb,
know that
I
their
know
drugs
the
are gonna be
bomb is
consumed.
being built to be used, and in this case, to being used to end a war. And ending that war might be killing 20,000 people.
Yeah, but that I don't. So, are you saying legally that's an issue, or are you saying morally that's an issue?
It's a moral issue that's like big enough for consequences, like very like real social consequences, right? Like,
but what's the morality then, though? Like, because you could look at it both ways. Like, what I'm saying is you're not arguing it both ways. You're saying that, okay, well, they made the bomb, but that's without context, though, from their point of view, not from the U.S.'s point of view, because the U.S. was clearly on some
I mean,
shit.
you're right. Maybe like from their point of view, it's like, hey, we're doing a good thing here. Like we're killing, we might be dropping this bomb. This bomb may kill 20,000 people, but we're saving
it's like,
a million,
okay,
right?
kill 20,000 people in Japan now, or over the course of what we think is going to be the war. 300,000 people die. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Which is why I think accountability after the fact, like now after you've had time to really look at like, hey, like what were the consequences of doing this thing? I do think people should be held responsible for it, and like they are
just
for the most part.
restating without, we just went through this whole thing, but you just restate the same exact
I
thing.
do think, because like, in summation, I do think that Oppenheimer and anyone who's a part of that Manhattan Project bears a responsibility, a social responsibility,
fair
and
enough.
they should have been arrested.
Fair enough. That's fair.
Just super quick question: are we taking it all the way back to like Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his initial
like how you try to
funding?
skate.
Yeah, I know. Like it was a tongue twister for me.
It is funny when
foreigner
your
and
tongue
all.
gets like
Yeah,
fucked in your
just
mouth.
yeah,
and
yeah. But are we taking it
Pause.
back to him too? Because he was the initial one who funded it, and then also like Albert Einstein and the other scientists who were involved with drafting up the first letters saying that hey, the Germans are potentially creating an atom bomb, and you should create your own. Like where are we taking it though?
Yeah.
Like to me,
You mean today in 2023?
No,
or like
no, no, it's just
during
like
that
even-
point in time?
No, he's saying that at that point in time, what happened, the reason why the U.S. even got started with this program in the first place is because I think it was Einstein and I think it was
Leo Szilard, something like that.
yeah, some other dude sent a letter to the U.S. saying, "Yo, these chumps over here working on a fucking bomb. Y'all need to get on that shit quick."
Yeah.
And so that's what kicked off this whole program of the U.S. wanting to beat Germany to making this bomb. So then he's like, do you go back to these two dudes and be like, yo, y'all gotta go?
And like in my opinion, you don't, because
The guys who wrote
that
the letter
was
this
the
morning?
actual threat
Yeah.
at the time, and they
Yeah.
presented a proper letter to the U.S. government saying, "Hey, this is the threat." But then again, as Tunde mentioned, like in the movie, they outline it. History shows Hitler killed himself before. The Third Reich was collapsing. You already knew that. The Imperial Japanese Empire was about to
Where was that
crumble
coming
too.
from? Where did you pull that from?
Huh?
Because I'm interested in reading whatever it was that you pulled that from. Where was that from?
So I was originally gonna be a history teacher. That's what I was gonna go to
is that how you-
college for.
Is that how you know?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty
Oh, I
cool.
thought you pulled it from like an article or some shit.
No.
Oh, okay. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. I also manned the High Castle. Good show. You can watch that. Get a little
All right,
information
we got
there
the
too.
real genesis of Addy.
Yeah,
doing this.
I got it.
Fucking the man in the high castle.
Anyway, we can go on about this shit for days.
Yeah.
Lock them all up.
Yeah.
According to
According to
Rain.
Listen,
Rain was the first lock them up.
whoa.
Lock them up.
give me, man. If I had all the Infinity Stones, you gave me like 3 months.
One thing is abundantly clear. Rain, you should never be anywhere near true power.
I
there
would
is
course
no
correct.
godly
That
way.
nuclear button
Everybody
cannot
would
be near you.
dead. Everybody would be in
I
jail.
think that is the most logical, because the shit we've been doing hasn't been working. I think a lot of people need to go. Then we can start to fix the problem.
Yeah, this takes us back to like murder. If murder was legal, more people would be murdering people.
Exactly.
No, only this dude would be murdering
Yeah.
everybody.
Within the first 90 days, I would kill 1 million people. I
Jesus
swear to God. Let's
Christ.
solve this problem.
At what point do you have to go to jail then?
After. We'll deal with
What
that.
do you mean after?
Let me fix shit.
Fucking Patrick Bateman over
Let
here.
me fix things, and then
This is American
when,
Psycho
when it's
shit.
done, when we live in a better place, you guys.
Yo,
After
this is some
after
real-
he
this is-
murders
decide to
everyone
hold
in
it
the
down.
Do you
DOJ and there's
agree
no
with Thanos?
prosecutors.
I think Thanos is right.
This dude's crazy.
What was the
You're
writing on?
actually
What was it
crazy.
in Endgame? It was like a writing on the wall, in like a bathroom somewhere, and like it said like Thanos was right. I think mass murder, but like, it was very clean.
I like how you just glossed over.
It was very clean.
Murdering not just half the world, half the fucking universe. You're like, oh, hey, whatever, mass murder. What do you?
If I could just focus, because there are lots of people we get rid of.
Wait,
You know what
I
mean?
like how it's indiscriminate too. Like that was what Thanos said. He wanted to be fair about it. So
Yeah,
it
I
was
would discriminate.
indiscriminate.
No, I would discriminate.
Against like, but do you see like the God complex that creates? Because
Yeah, someone got to fix this shit. If I had all the Infinity
how do you
Stones, don't worry about it. I'll do it.
But the road to hell was paved with good intentions, meaning that you can be somebody who's all powerful and not know the actual consequences of the things that you're doing because they're so unforeseen, right? If you, being Oppenheimer, when you were studying theoretical quantum mechanics, there's really no way you could have known at that point in time where that was going to lead, right? That might lead to the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
You could not have known that, right? So
Thanos would have just got rid of all of them. All the people on the Manhattan Project, all the people in Japan who were like doing shit, the people in the US who were doing shit, just
and you think that's the solution?
temporary one. A really good one. Really good temporary
Boss.
one that might have
You know what?
long-term
You know-
effects. Because people are like, oh shit. Let me go to school and be a history teacher.
This is some,
Let me
this is some
not-
Old Testament shit. But I think I thought about this too, of just like, it's like how people feel about like people who are like MAGA. It's like, I feel like there's some people who are like, yeah, we just need to get rid of all of them. Like, and they think that that's going to solve the issue of MAGA. And it's like, I don't think that is. I think that's just called genocide. I think people have tried this.
Well,
and
you
I
already
don't-
know it's not going to work because there is neo-Nazis that are still around from that same ideology
Yeah,
back
the
in the
shit
day,
doesn't die, dude.
I don't,
Like-
think, I don't think anyone who just like wears MAGA hats is a terrible person and needs to be killed. But I think there are like, I would still get
So now
rid
we're getting
of
somewhere. So
a
then,
good chunk of them.
So then, okay, but then how do you discriminate then? Like, what is it like? If you
Bro, I
voted
got
for
the
Trump
Mind
once
Stone. I'll
instead of
figure it
twice,
out.
you have the mindset. Okay, we're done. All right, this is over.
We're talking. We're about to have a debate about a very theoretical thing.
No. We're talking about it from the direction of if you had the
If
power
this
to
thing
do
were
it,
real, yeah.
you would do it.
I don't. I mean, listen. I probably would still, but like
Jesus Christ, like
you
you're
know,
trying to qualify.
But I don't have the power, so that's really all it
Oh,
comes down to.
no. So let us all collectively work to
But
not
if I
allow
ever do, I
Rick to get
swear to
any of the
God.
fucking power.
If there's one thing
first
Americans
day.
can agree
No,
on,
we all
don't give
can
a
agree.
rain the power.
should never have any fucking
First
power. Right?
day, I'm just
Jesus
a
Christ! All right.
million
I think we
gone.
can fucking end
Hit
it
the
there.
reset button.
Give a rain no power is what we can all is the goal we can all agree on and work towards. Okay, all right. Let's get the fuck out of here. Let's just go ahead and hit the fucking outro. I don't even have enough to even say the usual shit, except for we'll hit the usual
I'm
protocol.
gonna start looking for the Infinity Stones tomorrow. On that note, fade out.
This dude, American Psycho Rain. That's your new.
You guys are just soft. We need harsh.
We're gonna start calling you AP Rain.
That should be the